Do you hear me? I have something to say.
Hello, everybody. How are you doing today? My name's Charlie, and I am not alone. Abigail is here, and hopefully my mic and everything is working, because I had to switch off my monitor mic because computers are fun. So let me I had everything set up. No, it says it's set up correctly. Let's try this again. And fun of being live.
Very true.
Can you hear? Can I hear you? I can hear you now.
Oh, I just hadn't talked yet.
No, I can hear the room sound through these, and the room sound disappeared, came back, and I noticed that it was switching the audio back and forth between different plugs and
Fun.
Yay! Hello, everyone. I'm Charlie. I am the Lady of Chaos, the Queen of Confusion, the Lord of what in the world just happened. And with me on Thursday all day, because I was just on her channel, is, I almost had it right, Miss Abigail Ford.
Hello, everyone.
Okay, I feel like I've been running a race. I feel like the dog has, if you hear sounds today, it's probably the dog, not the cat. The dog has decided the weather outside is perfect and she wants to just be outside. But there are pet nappers that go through our neighborhood and steal dogs, so I can't leave her out there unattended. So she's currently sitting across from me, giving me the eyes like, you know what I want. Why aren't we doing it? So, all right, let's see who's here before we get into it today. Megan is here. Hello, Megan. Brandon is here for me to mess up my Irish pronunciations. I'm not even going to try because I messed them up a lot already today. Hello, Brandon. How are you doing? Mary is here. Hello, Mary. Laura. Oh, I know, Laura. It's been so long. It's been, what, 10, 20 years since we last got together in this tavern to talk about what we're going to do with the sword. Oh, sorry. Wait a minute. Am I in Shannara all of a sudden? I'm apparently in Shannara. That happens from time to time. So today, if you're here for productivity, I love you. Other people are sprinting. I can get you. I can try to find out if you want, so I could tell you.
Or you can go watch our replay.
Or you could go watch the replay of.
Hasn't downloaded yet. Probably hasn't downloaded yet.
Who knows? It takes from, like with everything on YouTube, it's random amounts of time. Sometimes it seems like they're instantly up, and other times it's like 4 hours later.
In the very least, you can go watch our live stream that we did last week, because I know that one's downloaded.
Yep. Hello, Kat. I am so excited. We are going to be, well, actually, let's see if I can get my fingers pointing correctly. We are all going to be doing Fan Fiction Fridays starting not this Friday, but next Friday.
Yep. On
my channel at this time. I am so excited. You have no idea. Have my fan fiction picked out. I'm really excited. So today we are going to be talking about literary genres, publishing genres, Amazon genres, because these should be similar in the very least, but they are not. They are not. And I want to just start by saying genres are a myth. Genres are a lie. The word genre simply means kind, type. Originally, the novel was a genre. You either wrote poetry, or you wrote plays, or you wrote novels. Those were your genres. That's how it was. That's how it worked. That's why they're called novels. It was the new genre. That's why it's a novel. It's new. That's where the word came from. Over time, publishing companies decided they could make bank if they started sectioning off parts of writing into little bitty boxes to make more money. And thus we've ended up in the horrific state we're in today, where I know I've been taking my books wide. So Amazon has their own list of genres that do not match the ones that are on Apple Books. They do not match the ones that are in Google Google Play Books. They don't match the ones that are in Kobo or Barnes & Noble. Every freaking store, I'm going to do my best not to cuss. This may be the episode that I go blue on. Every place has their own list, and they are completely incompatible with each other. Why? Let's just start there. Why?
Because they like to make things difficult.
Like, I get the basic notion, right? We're going to do genres so people know what to get, right? If you like dragon fiction, you might like fantasy books. Let's just make it simple then. Like, genres to me are so obsolete in the world of tags now that tagging is a thing.
Yeah.
Because if I go to Wattpad or to Archive of Our Own or to any of those places online where you can read stories, I can just search the tags. I want a story with dragons, mermaids, and romance. Bam, there it is. There's all the stories right there. But we're stuck in an archaic system that will not go away until all of the publishers have crumbled to dust.
Yeah. And you get into the differences between genres, and then you have categories, and you have keywords, and then you have subcategories, and there's all these different, even within, like, they're basically the same thing. Categories and genres are basically the same thing, but they're called different things.
So as a sci-fi writer, this is somebody who writes sci-fi and fantasy. This is the nightmare zone when it comes to trying to figure out how to publish a book, because I know from experience, I'm not new at this. My first book came out in, if I remember when I looked it up, it's 2005. I've been doing this for a long time. Making sure you're in the right boxes so people can find you is so vitally important. And I get that. I'm not trying to short shrift the marketing value of this. But especially Amazon. I know we were going to break this down and stuff, but I'm just going to go on my Amazon rant. So the last book that I put out, I put in my things, right? It was an LGBT romance. It was an LGBT fantasy. It was a dark fantasy. It was an urban fantasy. It was a contemporary fantasy, because they separate those two for some reason, even though everywhere else they're synonymous. And we can talk about that, because I don't like urban fantasy as the name for modern contemporary fantasy, because most of my stories don't take place in cities, but they're still in the modern day. At any rate, I got all that in there. I then put in all my keywords, because I had dragons and I had fairies and I had, all of the stuff that you think people might search for, right? And then the book goes through its magic. It comes out on the site, and it's in young adult. I didn't tell it to do that. And it's not like it was a dirty book. I'm not currently writing dirty books, though. Who knows what the future may hold. But it was a dark book. It dealt with subject matter that, some kids, depending on age, might, it might be appropriate for them, might not. But the way this is working now, and I think everybody needs to understand this, which is why I'm starting with this. The genres that you pick, especially on Amazon, don't matter. Amazon runs an algorithm based on the genres that you pick, the keywords that you choose, and all of the other metadata based on how you describe the book in your book blurb, and will assign genres to you. And some of that can be hacked if you need to be in certain secret genres that don't show up on the list, because there are secret genres that don't show up on the list. And sometimes it'll happen just because it freaking happens when you don't intend it to happen. And then you spend a week trying to get in touch with Amazon because, oh, Jeff Bezos, we do love you, and we love the checks that we get. We are not saying anything terrible or wrong. Please don't delist my book again. Not that you have ever done that, but I noticed that my book sometimes miraculously ends up not in search. Bugs, they happen. But fix this. Fix this. because I think that's what makes this even more nightmarish for us as writers, is trying to figure out where stuff should be, because we spend hours or days, I don't know what your process is, trying to figure out which keywords, because you only get a few. You know, you get more than you used to, but you don't get that many. Picking out your keywords just right and everything. And then you see the book's up, the book's live. That's not what I did. You know, it's frustrating. Sorry. I have feelings about this.
No, you're good. My mom was boxing up something with tape, so I was muted myself because it was loud. And she told me she was gonna, so I was anticipating that. But yeah, it's fun. And then you also, what drives me nuts even more than just that as a foundation is when you have people putting their products in a smaller genre / category, and it does not fit, not in that, so that they can get that #1 rank.
Yep.
But does not line up. That's not good for the reader. That's not good for other writers. It only works for you, and it's deceptive.
And just so you all know, I am pulling my books out of Kindle Unlimited by the end of, I think by the middle of next month, they're all going to be out. And the reason is I use Kindle Unlimited to read, but it's getting to the point where, one, I don't like the exclusivity that they require. And two, when I found out that all you have to do is get somebody to download your book, as long as somebody's put your book on your reading shelf, that counts as a sale in Amazon's eyes. And I know a couple, there's been a lot of chatter, I'll just say it that way, about several writers who have been set up systems to abuse this system to propel themselves up, because they're not technically defrauding, because the bots aren't reading the text, so they're not taking money from Amazon, but it's being counted as a sale and boosting their sales rank just to have it put onto the list. And I just don't want to be a part of that system anymore. For anybody who wants to read my work for free, I'm just going to give it away for free. It's going to be up on my website. Have fun, just go for it. Because, well, I did make some money off of, the Kindle Unlimited reads. Most of the book money came from sales for me. So I don't feel like I'm going to be losing a bunch there. And if I get more readers, because it's easier for people to read my stuff, that it's a win-win. But it's a hackable system that, especially with some of the micro genres that they're putting in there, that is hurting a lot of indies right now. Because I've seen some bigger name books showing up in very small categories. I'm not going to, no tea's going to be spilled, because I'm not that kind of a person. I don't like doing call outs, but I will say I did notice a very big, a fairly big name author in LGBT fantasy romance. And there isn't one in that book, because I've read that book. And they probably have no idea. That's why I'm not calling them out. They probably have no idea. Their publicist or the publishing company probably did it.
Yeah. Because I don't think that Amazon would automatically put a book in that one.
Yeah, I honestly don't know.
Because the research I've done, because I have Publisher Rocket, and
we're going to talk about that. I've been debating about that.
I can tell you the pros and cons I have later, but basically, with Publisher Rocket, it shows you how many sales you need to get into the top 10 and how many sales you need to get to #1. And there are some where it's crazy difficult, obviously, because they're the more not niche.
Like if you're trying to get into epic, be #1 in epic fantasy, Gur still controls that lane. And if you start outselling A Song of Ice and Fire, good on you, man. good on you. That's magic, but
Literal magic.
literal magic.
But yeah, so it is frustrating to me when you go in and it's just, I feel like it's just
So some basics, the three basic genres that to me are the easiest to define that most people have trouble with. I just feel like going through this real quick is one, romance. The Romance Writers of America state quite clearly that in a romance novel, the romance must be the main storyline, not a subplot. If it is a subplot, then it is not a romance novel. Two, it must have a happy ending. They have to get together at the end, or it is not a romance novel. And I get that. When you read a romance and you're just like, yay, they're going to be together, and then they're not, it feels wrong, which is why I very clearly try to mark The Return as not a romance novel. Everybody who yells at me, it's not. Sorry, spoilers, but it's not. Anyway, so that one's very clear cut. So whatever other genre you're layering on top, as long as it's got a love interest, multiple love interests, love clump, doesn't matter, but they have to be together at the end. So that's romance. Science fiction, to me, has the easiest definition in the world. A science fiction story is any story in which the science is integral to the plot.
Yeah.
If the science is not integral to the plot, you're writing science fantasy, which is technically where space opera and all of the fun stuff that most people think of as science fiction should be. See, I think there really should be a hard wall there because it's such an easy thing to think about. Because when I think science fiction, I'm old, I get it, but I think of Isaac Asimov, those kinds of books. I even think of the Dragon Riders of Pern books, which are science fiction, not fantasy. She went through a lot of effort to explain where the dragons come from, how they go between, the technology that it took to get them to Pern in the first place, and the actual mechanics of the thread. Like, the science is extremely integral to that, even though it feels like a medieval fantasy sometimes. There is an amazing amount of work that Anne put into making those stories happen. So if the science is not integral to your story, it is technically not science fiction. It is in the science fantasy camp. I have nothing wrong with that. That's wonderful. There are a lot of genres over there. Fantasy is any story with magic in it, no matter how light. It could be fairy tale magic, where it's just in a whimsical, magical fairyland, and we never see magic again. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't have to be all throughout. You have low fantasy, you have high fantasy. Those are really easy. Once you start getting into cutting the lines between what is thriller and what is suspense, I am not a Nobel laureate. I do not have a microscope that can see that far down into the cosmic threads that make up the universe. But those three are easy, and I think people overcomplicate them way too much.
I agree with you. Yeah. I mean, romances are pretty plain, cut and dry romance. I think that people overcomplicate, or I think actually I would say they oversimplify, actually. Wrong word. So they oversimplify. Do I mean oversimplify or overcomplicate? Oh my goodness. Wow, my brain.
Depends on the rest of the sentence, because I've seen people do both.
So science fiction.
Oh, science fiction is overcomplicated AF.
Yeah. So that's what I mean. I think so. Anyways, I'll explain what I mean. They always make it so it is specifically technology.
Yes.
In science fiction, and not necessarily just science. When you hear science fiction, you break down what that is. It's just anything with science, but they always make it mechanical or technology or some invention.
And it doesn't have to be.
Right.
And I'm hoping that will change when Foundation comes out, the Foundation series comes out, because as long as they stick to the books, that's purely about an idea.
Mm.
Someone has an idea for a new science that can predict the future.
Mm.
And that's what the entire series is based on. And that makes for great science fiction. Before I get to you, Laura, hello, Stephen. I'm glad you made it. I haven't seen you on here before. I hope you enjoy the conversation. I saw this, and yeah, you're writing science fantasy. I'm writing science fantasy because, honestly, I wrote science fiction. My very first book was science fiction, and while I still often do the math to figure out the orbits of my planets and all that stuff, because I'm one of those weird people that enjoys doing that. You will get somebody writing a doctoral thesis about how you were wrong in your math, no matter what you do. So any science fiction writer that's out there, like I remember when my first book came out, like one of the first pieces of fan mail I ever got was an explanation about how I had miscalculated the rate at which the ship would have had to have been moving to break orbit of the planet they were on to actually achieve the maneuvers that were going on in the book. And that I had also miscalculated the G-forces that the characters would have had to have, that the systems would have had to have compensated for, and blah, 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 blah. And I wrote them a very nice thank you letter because the math was beautiful and I like looking at that kind of thing. It will happen. Because science fiction, especially science fiction readers, which is why you notice me always make a difference between science fiction and sci-fi. At the cons, when we talk about these things, science fiction is hard sci-fi science fiction. It takes the science so seriously. Sci-fi is a story with tech and stuff. Often in the future, not always. But yeah, I do want to prepare you, especially if you've never published in the science fiction genre. Prepare for it. It will happen. You will get corrections on your sciences. When I started working on my space opera that I've been developing for the last year, I posted a thing about one of the races I wanted to do, and I got into a 3-day back and forth with a gentleman who was debating over whether or not that type of species could have evolved on the type of planet that I said that they did. And I won because I knew the science was on my side there. But it will happen. Prepare yourself. Prepare for yourself. And also remember, in science fiction, the science doesn't have to be plausible. It just has to be seen as an extension of where we are, of what we know. It shouldn't violate known science. Mm-hmm. Psychohistory, just to go back to Foundation, because that trailer looked really good. Psychohistory is about using psychology and statistical modeling to predict the future. Whether or not that can ever actually happen is moot. The plausibility of it, especially down to they're able to predict the rise and fall of empires like to the day. That'll probably never happen, especially the way it is in the book. But it's that idea that we can learn from our predictive nature, and by learning what we do that's predictable and how we can change our own predictability, we can actually succeed and become powerful. That's what a lot of those books are about. And so the idea is solid, whether or not the technology is plausible. Just to clarify there. Yeah, you'd be surprised. You would be surprised, the stuff. People will, not to scare off any budding science fiction author out there, but you put a spaceship on the cover, someone will learn about Roque limits, because someone will bring them up to you. Someone bring them to you. Hello, Alley Cat. And hello, the motivational setting. I believe I've seen you on one of my streams before. Hello. Okay. I want to move. Do you have anything else to say on that before we move on to the next thing? I don't believe that genres are as important as they used to be. I think the age category has superseded genre in the market right now. Because so many people are, when I hear people describe books, like especially on like BookTube, on social media, when they're talking about what they're reading or what they just read, it's always, I'm reading this middle grade book, I'm reading this YA book, I'm reading this new adult book, which publishing does not see as a thing. If you're working on a new adult book, that's probably going to have to be self-published or rewritten younger to be YA or rewritten older to be contemporary. If you're wanting to be traditionally published, traditional publication does not see new adult as a thing right now. But that seems to be so much more important in communicating what our books are about than the actual genre.
Yeah. Yep. And that's one reason why, I mean, not bashing this by any means, but it seems like most people do pick YA, and the concept of YA is, they find themselves and go, figure out who they are as a person. And that was, I don't know, even though I'm technically would fit into that age range, it's not appealing to me. And the difficult thing is, if you read a book like, say, The Cat, and they say, there's transformation and there's, character development. Of course you want character development. That's, really important. But sometimes it's like, okay, where's the line between, YA, we're learning how to be an adult and who we are, and the character development transformation. So there was times where I'm like, should I just make this a YA? And I'm like, no, this is just character development. You know what I'm saying?
For me, when I think about, is the work I'm doing YA, because I'm really grappling with that right now, because the characters in my current whip are all just graduated from high school for the most part. So they're 18. The vast majority of all of the POV characters are about 18, 19 years old in the story that I'm working on right now. And this could easily be a YA book. And for me, when I think of YA, and I would love to hear from the people in chat what you think about this, that to me has to do more with the emotional availability of the characters. Because I find one of the things that YA books do that are really interesting is they spend a lot more time focusing on the emotional struggle and the emotional turmoil within the character than the interpersonal relationships between the characters. Like, it's not that one's missing, it's just, for YA, it's a lot more the character trying to understand their own feelings and emotions, and then that informs the character interactions. Whereas in new adult, or whatever we're going to call it, I guess adult fiction, which I don't like saying because we use that as a euphemism for porn. I mean, what's after new adult? Because we can't call it contemporary, or I don't know what that's called. But an adult just sounds wrong. But it just feels like that emotional availability is a big part of what makes YA to me. Ooh, whoop, where did it go? Everything jumped when I went to click it. Peppermint tea.
I got apple cider.
Caramel apple tea. My husband just used the last tea bag from the Hobbiton mint tea that we had. It was a special run, and we bought up a whole case of it because it was so good. Because it was a blend of basically all the mints, but it was blended so well that it was the most refreshing mint tea I have ever had. And I keep hoping that they will just release it under a different brand now that they don't have the license for Lord of the Rings anymore. But yeah, I love a good mint tea.
Same flavor, different name.
Same flavor, different name. That's
yeah.
It's kind of like, also they made an Earl Grantham tea to tie in with Downton Abbey, and it was one of the best teas.
I thought on their website they still have it.
That we actually sell them in the store, and they told us that they're not going to be. It doesn't look like they're going to be continuing it in the next catalog, and I'm just like, no, it's so good. If you like Earl Grey, it's like Earl Grey but different, and the way that it's different makes it oh so good. Like it's got that strong bergamot kick that Earl Grey does, but it's got a lot more herbiness underneath it, and it's so good.
So it's not like Lady Grey. It's a little bit on the other side.
Yeah, it's on the other side, and it's so good. But one of these days, I'm going to do a Downton Abbey stream. Just
sign me up. I've seen it. I've watched it so many times.
That's my jam. It's yeah. It is so hard to figure it out. Like I said, that's the line that I've made in the age groups, and I don't know if it's fair or not, but I do read a lot of YA books, and I think that's just because YA fantasy was so big for such a long time that a lot of writers just went, okay, well, I'm going to, whether it should be or not, make this a YA book. And so a lot of fantasy that came out fit into that category. But it's a hard thing to figure out. She's here. It's up. I gave you the wrench, didn't I? If I give you the wrench, you can link it in chat. Ooh, excuse me. I don't mind you promoting, because I'm really excited about that. We might do a view. If I thought it would give you views, I would do a viewing party, but I don't want to rob you of the views from the people in chat.
Oh, I just got a notification that Charlie Dorset's live. Thank
you.
You.
Finally. Now, 30 minutes in. Okay, side rant. YouTube needs to get its act together.
It does.
Because I want to give everybody the warning that's watching this. I went through and had to check because I noticed that there were some people that I would see on Instagram saying that their videos were out. I got unsubscribed recently to a bunch of channels again. Like that hasn't happened for a while, but a lot of channels that I was subscribed to, I got unsubscribed to. And this is the thing that I don't want to put my tinfoil hat on. I don't like wearing my tinfoil hat. They were all small YouTubers. Like they were all people that have under 500 subscribers. None of the bigger channels got did I get unsubbed from. It was all the smaller channels. A lot of the smaller channels. So if you're missing videos from somebody, check and see, because I was hoping that they were done with that because I haven't had that happen in a while.
And then no notifications as well.
I still haven't gotten the notification for the stream you and I did this morning.
That's why I write stuff down.
Well, just out of curiosity, because I'm wanting to see how well it works, because I thought it would be funny, like halfway through the stream to be like, haha, I just got the notification that we're streaming together. No, it's still not on my phone.
And you know what's funny is I didn't put a reminder on for this. So it did notify me. I didn't even put the reminder on. So I guess that's good.
I am so excited for that video though, because
Laura, that's happened to me too. Because especially the one I'm kind of into the body positivity community, and this one was like the anti-body positivity. They're posting stuff. And I was like, it was kind of honestly triggering. So I was like, I'm subscribe. No, get away from me.
So, okay, confession time. I like to watch a lot of channels that go after flat earthers. Like that's how I relax. Like, it makes me feel better. Trust me, I live in the land that science forgot. So
basically, you don't have to worry about people emailing and sending you letters about how your science wrong and your science fiction.
One of my neighbors has a sign on their yard that says masks are genocide. Yeah, I live in the land that science forgot. So to feel better, I watch a lot of like people yelling at conspiracy theorists and flat earthers to calm down.
To quote Ingo Montoya. I do not think you know what I don't think that word means what you
What
think
do you
it
think it means? Yeah, I stopped. I stopped. Just yeah, I don't engage. I just live in my cave. But yeah, I ended up getting like I loaded up my subscription the other day to watch some videos, and I had been subscribed to like 3 actual conspiracy channels that were like promoting this stuff. And I'm just like, I know I never even watched one of your videos that somebody else wasn't making fun of. Like, and 3 drama channels. And I don't watch drama channels because I don't have time for that. I get sucked in. I'm bad. So yeah. Check your subs, people. YouTube's gone crazy again. Yeah. It just I you would think with as much money as they make and as big a company as they are that they could like do basic things, and I don't understand that. Yeah. I don't get it. I don't understand the purpose of it, because I feel like they put in the bell and the notification thing because they realized the subscriptions weren't working all the time. And so all they did was add another system that doesn't work reliably. Just fix it. You can do it. I know it's hard to debug code, but find the bugs and kill them.
Yeah.
It's a nightmare, but it's got to be done. Yes. Our neighbors need help. One of our neighbors is our local state congressperson who has been making national headlines for some of the extremely racist things that he has said lately, because that's where I live. Not by choice, mind you, but that's where I live. I live in the land of the red hats, and that's why I don't get out much, and why I'm always streaming, because it's how I can talk to humans. Because
on its own, okay.
Like I said, I have rage issues and I have PTSD, and the people around here, but family, you know how it is. Yeah.
That's why I have a calendar I write down. Ooh, nice.
Ooh.
So I feel like every time I drink chamomile, it just makes me go to sleep. Chamomile tea.
I wish I could sleep. Sleep and I have never quite been friends. And when I talk about my regimented routines, like getting to sleep is a thing.
Chai.
Oh, I love me a good chai.
So
that's actually, there we go. That's what we'll call the late night things. Chai chats with Charlie, just to watch people try to pronounce it.
Say that 3 times fast. Yeah.
Hello, welcome to the shows. Now say the name really quickly. Chai chats with Charlie.
I'm not even gonna try right now. But one of my favorite things is actually called London Fog, which is basically a Earl Grey chai latte, basically. So it's like chai tea, Earl Grey, and then they steam the milk and make it all foamy. And that's the London Fog, and it is
so good.
Actually, funny story. I got introduced to it in Missouri.
Like I say a lot of bad things about this place. I grew up all over the country, and I've lived here off and on throughout my life, but actually
it was in Kansas City, so I'm like, was it in the Kansas? I think it was most of the time in the Missouri side.
Kansas is like a completely different state. Like I live in Poplar Bluff, which if you've ever heard of it, it's because you watched Designing Women, because the creator of that series was from our humble little town, and she made Charlene from our humble little town. And the actress who played Charlene was from our humble little town. And so if you ever want to know like the history of our town, do watch Designing Women. It's good for a lot of other reasons too, but all of the stories that are told on that show are true. And she did not change the names to protect the guilty. Like that's like a William Faulkner show, Like if you're from around here, when Charlene starts telling a story, you're like, oh, you're talking about that. Like it's real. It's real.
Like,
and it's
help in real life.
it's insane. Ooh. We are looking at coming up with our own Earl Grey version. My husband's favorite tea is Earl Grey. And we used to get this Earl Grey rooibos tea that was good for him to have at night so he wouldn't be kept up by the caffeine. And they're not making it anymore. So we're looking at getting some loose leaf teas and trying to make our own, because we don't drink decaffeinated teas. We only drink teas that don't have caffeine in them originally, because they use formaldehyde to get the caffeine out. No, thank you. All right. For anybody who wonders why I keep turning my camera off, I have a dog who's wanting to play, and she keeps almost knocking everything off, and so people don't get dizzy by the camera doing this thing. That's why I keep turning the camera off, just so you know. Because
I turned it off because my dad came up and delivered dinner for me.
Ooh.
Because I came down and I was like, okay, I have like half an hour. Dinner ready? And I'm like, oh. And I was like,
So age groups. Well, this is how conversations with me go. We start, we go off, then we come back. It's like a yo-yo. To me, I think the biggest problem with new adult is that if we're going to have something after YA, and I'm not saying there shouldn't be something after YA, but if we're going to, we have to commonly agree on what the term after it is. Because I think that's why the publishing industry is so reluctant to embrace the idea of new adult fiction, because one, we have collectively as a culture decided to use the term adult fiction as a euphemism for pornography. And so I
have struggled saying that every single time, because that's not what I'm talking about at all, but it's for adult. So what else am I supposed to say? Like,
yeah, we yell at the TV every time we watch something and it puts up the mature tag on it. It's like, oh no, honey, we're watching Big Mouth. This is not for mature people. Mature people would not like this show. This is for people who are over 18 that are as immature as they were in high school or younger. Because I don't like mature either. Because to me, mature actually has a meaning to it. It's a way of acting. It's a way of thinking. And, you know, Lady Grantham is mature.
Yes.
Most of the time. Unless she's dealing with her Russian something.
Petty sometimes.
But, you know, we need to have a term for what comes afterwards. Because that when I think of some really good books that should have been forerunners of that, like Devil Wears Prada, when that came out, that did launch a bunch of similar books. And a lot of them went into the wonderfully titled chick lit realm. But that is so much more of a new adult story, because it is an adult coming of age. She's getting her first serious job. She's trying to figure out what she actually wants in life. That's what that book is about. And that should have, in any other situation, actually given us that category. Or a lot of the books that came out around that time should have done it. But we have this dearth of titles. Like, what do we call it? New adult. I watch grown people who are not nearly as puerile as I am say new adult and giggle immediately afterwards, because you know where their mind went, you know, because of how we are.
My question is that, what does new mean? New adult.
Because you're newly minted. You're new to adulting. Why don't we just call them adulting books? Because that's kind of what they are. We've decided that's a verb.
It's crazy. I mean, for me, it's like exactly what Laura is saying. Like, the adult implies something that is not. But what am I supposed to say? Like, I want to talk about the age genre it's in. It's not young adult. It's not new adult. what is it?
What is it?
And that's why I'm adult. But
And
that's something else. And there's nothing else.
There's nothing else. And I really feel like that's what's holding it back, because publishers only care about the fictitious reader in Iowa. Like when you watch those movies, no, I'm not joking. When you watch those movies and they're always like, what are those corn farmers going to think about this? I've been in the rooms with these people. This is how they honestly think. They have this mythological conservative person in the middle of the country that they are so afraid is going to pick up pitchforks and torches and come get them.
They'll do
like,
that anyway.
Yeah. Like, people are going to come after you no matter what. Just do you. But you can see it in their head. You know, we can't call this adult fiction because those pitchforks and those torches are going to come.
Mm-hmm.
This is why romance is doing so well in self-publishing compared to other genres. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that LGBT stories are still not accepted by a lot of places. Getting them published anywhere is still extremely difficult, so much harder than it should be. Trans characters are tokens at best if we appear in mainstream published fiction. And don't even get me started if your characters are bi, or if your characters are polyamorous in any way, shape, or form. It's not going to go into the traditional publishing route, except for in very few channels, because, again, that mythological farmer that's going to not buy the book. Well, they weren't going to buy that book anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So why are you worried whether they're going to get it?
They even read?
Based on the stereotype, because that's the thing. Like when you listen to the actual stereotype that they have of this person who will be offended, you know, because like I said, in normal years when, you know, we aren't trapped in our homes, I go to a lot of conventions and conferences and stuff, and you sit in the room with these people talking about this mythological person, and you hear their description, and you're like, what are you worried about? They can't read. They're not online. Just don't put an ad on TV or the radio, and they won't even know the book exists. Like, you're fine. Like,
do anyway.
You've created such a Luddite in your mind. Like, as long as just advertise on Instagram, they'll never know that the book ever happened. You know, I have many things against the publishing industry, and this is one of them, that they just get stuck in this, well, we've always made money this way.
Yes. Well, that's what all it is. They're not willing to take any risks.
No.
I mean, I remember being so frustrated one time because as a teen, and I was starting to get into, you know, writing books and publishing and stuff. And basically, it was a traditionally published author, and she posted all excited, my publisher has told me what the book's title is going to be and what it's going to be about. And I was like,
Yep.
So basically, you're closer to a ghost writer.
Depending on what you're wanting to go into, yeah.
You get to put your name on it, but that's about it.
And I'm going to be honest, if by any chance anybody over at Lucas Books happens to see this, I am glad to write any Star Wars, anything that you want me to, no matter how small, no matter how insignificant, because that's my heart. That's my heart. Those are Star Wars posters right there. We have a 3-foot tall Millennium Falcon in the office back there, okay? That's my heart. I will do it. Just tell me what to write. I will put words to it. But
that's about it. That's all.
Yeah. Like if I'm doing a tie-in novel, like there are some franchises that I would kill to do a tie-in novel for, and I kind of expect them to be like, okay, you need to write about this topic, these characters, and here are the limits. You can't do these things because it's part of a bigger franchise that somebody else controls. Yeah, I have friends who write tie-in fiction, and that's how it goes there. I have no problems with that.
That's different.
The limits that are being put on people's imaginations. You know, we would not have gotten a Hunger Games or a Harry Potter or a Hobbit. Like, The Hobbit was such an anomaly when that book was published. It's so hard today to understand what a Herculean task it was. And if he was not an Oxford professor, No one would have taken that book seriously enough to take it to print.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you gotta believe that. He showed that there was a market, and thus it existed. If they're not giving people an opportunity to show that there's a market, I mean, look at all the Magipunk books that are out now that are just amazing and wonderful. And I don't know of any that are traditionally published. Not a single one that is traditionally published. And that's just, or, I think a few steampunk books are finally getting traditionally published now, after all these years.
Yeah.
I mean, it's insane.
Yeah.
It is insane.
That's why I kind of was so happy to get Kindle Unlimited, because I was actually able to affordably be able to read indie authors.
Yeah.
And it was like, these are stuff I actually want to read because they're actually different.
Yeah.
And I mean, that particular author I was a pretty huge fan of, that I talked about, where she was like, my publisher told me,
Yeah.
And her first like 3 books, which is really good. And then after that, they were just repeats. Exact, like almost carbon copies. And I'm like, I feel like I'm reading the same book as before.
Because the others sold. So do it over and over and over again. Or you end up with, I think we need a He Who Shall Not Be Named for I don't want to say his name, but the gentleman who wrote the Sword of Truth books, he's so litigious. He's going to hunt me down and sue me just for bringing him up. But his books are heavily influenced by the writing of smaller authors that other people haven't read because they're not platformed as well as he is. And so he gets to add his Ayn Rand philosophy on top of their existing ideas with his characters now inserted. And that's fine, because that's the publishing industry today, like in a nutshell. He sells books. They don't care what he's doing, even though lawsuits fly around like crazy because he's ripping people off, allegedly. I know. My mother is so afraid that I'm writing porn. It's not even funny. It is not even funny. Just every time I mention anything, and there is a chance that I may be doing an erotica series, possibly under a pen name, so it doesn't get confused with my other work, because that's something you don't want to accidentally stumble into if you're not looking for it. And I can't wait to just go over and go, guess what, Mom? Now I am. That'll be a fun day. Yeah. Yeah.
This is how it should be.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, because we have a name for it. Yes. Inappropriate. We have different labels for that. We don't have a label for the adult age range.
Exactly. And this is one of the reasons why people get offended sometimes, because I use the word degenerate a lot, because it's a word that I am very fond of, because it basically means that you are not living up to the racial and ethnic expectations that are placed on you. Look it up. That's where that comes from. And most of the people that are using degenerate or degeneracy, that's what they're referring to. So I don't mind being called a degenerate, but it's a word with a meaning. I love the word freak. I always say I write weird fiction. I write freaky fiction, because to me, those are virtually genres of their own.
Freaky friction. Friction? Oh, okay.
That's a completely different genre, but
freaky.
See my new adult series.
Oh, I broke Charlie.
Yep. Oh, okay. I'm getting better. But yeah, it's ridiculous, mainly because in the literary world, using as many euphemisms as people do, it makes it actually harder to sell books, and that's just annoying. Yeah.
Yes.
That's actually one of the
audiences. Drive me crazy.
That's one of the yes. Oh. If I could just go on a weird side tangent here.
Your stream.
Like, yeah, but if the chat's like, you've done that enough, stop. I will stop.
I'm not. Are you?
But like, I'm excited for Fan Fiction Friday to come back. And one of the things that was amazing to do was a couple years ago, I got to actually meet Ethan Peck, who plays Spock in the new Star Trek TV series. And I'd hurt my back, so I wasn't able to go. So some friends of mine actually got him to come out to our party that night at the convention and hang out with us. And if you want to see this, hear more about this, I did an episode of the podcast called How I Got to Meet Ethan Peck. But during this, because we had been imbibing adult beverages for most of the evening by the time he arrived, so we were not exactly in our right states of mind. So we're sitting there with Ethan Peck, and one of my friends decides to start going, so did you go over to the Slash table since you've been here and look at the stuff they're writing about you? And this is the amazing thing. One, he didn't know what Slash was. Two, we educated him on what Slash was. And three, he started giving us tips on stories we should write about Spock in the future. Because that's the thing. We are ashamed of our culture as fans. Mm-hmm. Because for some reason,
made fun of.
Well, think about this. It is okay for somebody to paint themselves in a sports team's colors and run around in their sports team jerseys and be loud and raucous and take over an entire bar because the sports game of their choice is playing with the sports game of their choosing, right? And yet we allow them to make fun of us for putting on our Klingon costumes and learning how to speak Valerian and Dothraki and wearing our team jerseys for the fandoms that we love. It's no different. We are so much more powerful and more plentiful than people know. I wear my fandom shirts everywhere I go, and it's amazing to me how many people come up to me and go, I really like that too. Like it's a dirty secret.
Yeah.
Like, this is Robotech or Macross, depending on which you watched. Or if you watch both, it's both. It's not. It's an anime from the 80s. Okay? There's nothing to be embarrassed about. Like, this isn't hentai. This isn't anything like crazy going on. Like, we allow ourselves to be embarrassed, and thus they don't see our numbers. We give in to that fictional Iowa person that's going to be offended by us as much as the publishing companies do. And it's amazing when you actually get to sit down with some of these people at these events and have conversations with them, and you just watch their eyes as they're looking around. Like, you know why there's a new Battlestar Galactica series? I was talking to one of the people from the network who was at a convention last year, and they looked around at everybody cosplaying Battlestar Galactica still. And they went, oh, people still like this? Yes.
Yeah.
Like, did you not look at your streaming numbers? Are you not like how do you not know?
Yeah.
How do you not know that people don't still like this? Like, he was amazed. He was surprised. Somebody made a replica of one of the Raiders from the 1980s show and had it there and was standing there in a full head-to-toe costume as a Centurion, as a Cylon Centurion. And this exec from the network was just astounded that people care enough about our show to do this? Like, completely out of touch. This is why indie publishing is taking over, because we know what we like. We know that there are other ones of us out there, and we're just selling to each other now.
Yeah.
And that's why the genre system doesn't work and why these other systems are working so much better.
Yeah. It's limiting.
Yes. Yeah. Alternative lifestyles. I despise that term. Just let me put this out there right now. I did not choose to be queer. Trust me, I grew up in all the Bible Belt states. My childhood was spent in Tennessee, Texas, Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Missouri.
Well, you didn't hit mine, so not all.
So, Well, I'm just saying, a lot of them. Like my entire childhood. If I could have not been the weird sissy kid on the playground, don't you think I would have done it?
Yep.
Like that word lifestyle, that always gets me when I go into a store because I'm just like, yes, at the age of 6, I decided I wanted to be repeatedly beat up and bullied in school because that's what all the cool kids do. Yeah.
It's your superhero origin story.
It is. It's how I got to be the person I am today, I guess.
You're like, I need a superhero origin story. Let me get beat up.
Every day by everyone and made fun of and learn a lot of words that I didn't need to know at a young age. But yeah, it's sorry. That was a bit of a trigger, but yeah, they need to, because I understand having them separated. Because if I'm in there looking for a man, and see, they need to be better separated in some ways. Because if I'm in looking for male relationship stories, that should be a lot easier to find.
Mm-hmm.
And so, well, Amazon is making that a lot easier. Nice, but Rick, this is why bookstores this is one of the reasons bookstores went away.
Yeah,
is they were afraid of getting in trouble for stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I feel like when I go to find books on Amazon, I use the keyword bar. I never go into the categories.
Mm-hmm.
So are they really necessary? Unless you are doing it solely for ranking.
If you're doing it for ranking, because people take you oddly seriously when you tell them that I've had a #1 bestseller on Amazon.
Yep.
And it astounds me to this day because I know what those numbers look like. I've had several #1s on Amazon, right?
You can have it for a day.
Yeah. The chain was #1 on Amazon. It sold just complete openness here. I think it was 1,200 copies its first day. And then it went down by like 100 every day after that for a while until it leveled off, and then eventually went into the wind so that nobody ever saw it again, because that's how Amazon works. But that was enough to keep me #1 in LGBT fantasy and a couple other fantasy genres for, I think, a week or two when that book came out. Now, that was a while ago, so I don't know what those numbers look like today. But, that's a good number of books. I'm not spitting at it. That's a bad number of books or anything. But I think people have this idea that bestseller lists take a lot more book sales than they do. Like, my husband and I were talking the other day because I forgot why, but it was something. I was watching a video by Courtney from the Courtney Project.
Mm-hmm.
And I said something about, how I take a lot of her business advice seriously because she's a USA Today bestselling author. And he looked at me and he was like, oh, but why not New York Times? Why do you care so much about the USA Today? And I was like, the New York Times bestseller list is a hoax. Mm-hmm. It's made by committee. Like they decide what books are in there. There's some math, not a lot. And the way it's statistically sampled, it's made by people, not by algorithms. That's a lot less true for the USA Today. So when somebody says they've charted over there, that's still that to me is amazing, because that's a lot harder to do, and you have to be selling in at least 3 markets. Mm-hmm. So you can't be Amazon exclusive either if you want to chart on USA Today. So you have to be showing sales in more than just one store. Like if all your sales are in Amazon, you cannot chart on the USA Today. So when she talks about going wide, or any of her marketing advice, I pay attention to it. But I don't know what it takes to get on that chart. But I know I have a friend who made it on New York Times, and that book sold, I think, 10,000 books in its entire lifetime. Mm-hmm. Like that year, like total that year. That's good. That's not like nothing to spit at, but I think people are thinking like these are 100,000 or
from having Publisher Rocket. there is categories where it only requires 50. You sell 50 books.
Yeah.
For you to chart. So.
I'm glad you enjoyed the conversation. Yeah, YA and NA. Well, like we said previously, if you're trying to be traditionally published, why? They're just going to take your money and they're going to make you market anyway. That's why I don't do traditional publishing anymore. They did not. I was responsible for my ads. I was responsible for my book tour. If I got to pay for it and you're taking a cut, what are you for?
Yeah, what are you for? It's the name. The name.
You know, if it's a dream, you know, I don't want to like pee on anybody's dream here. So like, if you really want to be traditionally published, more power to you. Like, if I ever saw one of my books with the Tor logo on it, I would scream, because do you know how many Tor and band books I have on my bookshelf? That would be amazing, because that would put me in the same league as some of those people. But you know, it is what it is. If you're going for traditional publishing, it's a YA book. I'm just going to say that straight out, because they are still blind to new adult.
Yeah, they're blind to a lot. So you have to know that your book needs to be more to market. You have to. You can't go. Yeah. You can't write what you want.
Yeah.
Unless what you want to write is more, not vague, but kind of, not as specified, not as narrow of a.
So I will say this, I have a hard rule on this. If there's sex in it, it is not YA.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of YA readers start at like 10. And I know I was very careful in a lot of my books when there was a chance to write a love scene, not to do it early on, because I had nieces and nephews that I knew read my books, and they were kids, you know, they were younger at the time, and I wanted to make sure there was nothing inappropriate for them. So I have a very hard rule that if I'm writing anything that I know is YA, like, there's a difference between a sexual relationship where you know it happened,
mm-hmm.
you know, where like on television we zoom into the fire and we come back, you know, and we don't actually see mm-hmm. too much going on. But I like I said, I have a very hard rule that if there's sex, it's not YA.
Yeah.
But if you're going to be indie publishing this, look into some of the ways people are marketing new adult and see if that fits you best. Because if it's somebody like, if it's like I hate to say this because I feel like I'm describing like an old Emmanuel movie, but if it's somebody coming to their sexual awakening and learning how to have interpersonal relationships for the first time, that is new adult. That is definitely a new adult book. That's
more edgy.
Well, new adult has kind of morphed. A lot of new adult books are starting to push more to that is the definition. Like, I really feel like people get confused by that adult word and think it has to be dirty. But I've noticed that as a trend in new adult. But I hope that helps a little bit.
I think, I mean, from the research I've done, I feel like, anyways, is it's a similar theme to young adult, but it's taken into more depth and more extremes.
Yeah.
And it is a little bit older age range, obviously, less in the teens and more in the later 20s. Yeah. But it does seem to be what is being adult, but let's go more intense. So darker themes do come up, edgier topics do come up.
And that's the biggest thing. Just because you have a child as your main character does not mean you're writing a young adult or a middle grade book. And just because you're writing a story with an adult as the main character does not mean that it is not a middle grade or a young adult book. People do tend to conventional marketing wisdom. So get your salt ready to take it with this. Says that people, especially children and younger people, tend to like to read stories about people who are their age or slightly older than them. And they often like to read books that are of people of the same gender as them and by writers of the same gender as them. I don't know how much that's true anymore, but you will still hear that quoted everywhere, cited everywhere.
Yeah.
So that might help too.
And I mean, for me as a kid, I'm trying to think. Hi, Stephanie.
I was reading Edgar Allan Poe when I was a kid, so what do I know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about the books. There's this one book that was actually a suspense horror that my brother got me to read, but it's about a serial killer. Was not a kid's book. Scared the crap out of me. I probably should not have read it, but no kids in it. Absolutely no kids in it, and I loved it. So I was probably like 12, 11, 12.
When I was a freshman in high school, my favorite book was The Hellbound Heart by Clive Barker, and Cabal, also by Clive Barker. If you're not familiar with those books, Hellraiser and Nightbreed were movies based on them. So I'm not the one to have a discussion on what's age appropriate to read. Because, yeah. Yeah.
When I was a teen, when I was doing fan fiction and loved fan fiction, I didn't even know what smut was, and stumbled into it by accident. So that was fun.
One of these days when we start doing the After Darks, we're gonna have a long talk about slash fiction, because I have to say, with the moment I realized that I was going to, like, I knew I wanted to be a writer when I found out humans wrote books.
Yeah.
Because that was a miraculous moment that I've talked about before. But I knew that, like, this is something I want to do. Like, I want to do this when I got a commission to write for a Forever Night slash zine back in the 90s. And writing vampire slash was so much fun. And I was like, some people get paid for this. Anne Rice makes a fortune. I know what I want to do when I grow up. But yeah, I don't think my parents know what I do to this day. I really don't, because I try to explain it to them, because, I've got a new book coming out. Well, is it on the computer, or can people actually read it? Both.
Yeah.
It's gonna be
So you probably know from what I post on Instagram the questions I asked.
Yeah.
So I'm making the video we've discussed before about the things not to say to a writer/author.
Oh yeah.
I have that on the list. Is it in a real book?
Is it a real book?
And they're talking about paperback, but it's like, if you're asking that question,
is it a real book? That's one of my absolute favorites. Is it a real book? Is this one of those weird ones? I get that one a lot.
Interesting.
Is it? Did you do another one of those weird ones? That's why I said it. Weird is a genre, because my answer is always yes. Yes, it's a weird one. I wrote it.
Aren't I?
Are you not familiar with me? You know me enough that you're in my personal life and asking me this question. Of course it's weird.
Yeah.
For goodness sakes. What are you thinking even asking
So if
that?
anybody else has any suggestions about things not to say to a writer author and things you'd wished people said, I'm compiling a list.
I'm not suggesting this for your list, because your video will be long and ranty, but the worst thing that has ever been said to me as a writer is, and I quote, "Do you feel like a traitor to the white race for having so many non-white characters in your book treated prominently and well?" That happened at the last public book signing I did outside of a convention.
Did you reply, "Do you sleep at night?"
I replied with a lot of unkind words, and there was a big, like, we did this outside of a restaurant, and the manager of the restaurant knew me and came out and asked if they needed to call the cops to get the other person to leave me alone. I was like, nah, I'm fine. And, like, we did not come to blows, but we had an extremely heated argument in a parking lot about what is not acceptable to ever say to a human being. Because I couldn't believe those words came out of their mouth. And that's when I stopped doing book signings outside of conventions, because the kind of people that often bought my books at a public book signing at a bookstore, I would get weird. Like it would get weird.
Yeah.
At conventions, those are my people.
Yeah.
They get it. They're there for a reason. And that's the only place I do book signings now. Because between that, yeah, that was I love the Thrawn books. Empire Sun was good. I love the Legacy of the Force books. There are 7 books in the series. It's what the sequel trilogy should have been. It is about the children of Han and Leia, and one of them falls to the dark side and has to either be redeemed or defeated. Luke is amazing in that book. Han is amazing in that book. They made me not despise Boba Fett, which is really hard to do because Boba Fett is a loser. And I don't care. Come at me. Like, his armor is awesome. Mandalorians rule. Boba Fett is a loser. And he got killed by a blind man on a boat in the desert. Boba Fett is a loser. Come get me. But it's a 7-book series. It is so good. It is so good. Like, it has all the things that I wish were in the sequel series in the movies. Ben Solo should have been Ben Skywalker. Ben Skywalker from the book. His book is so good. Jason is such an interesting character. Jaina is such a good character in these books. Lumaya is a great villain. That when I tell people, like, if you've never read any of the Extended Universe books and you want to just see what could have been, go to the Legacy of the Force books or the Thrawn trilogy. They are amazing. Hello, doll. How are you doing? I'm clicking things and they're not working. Yeah, traditional publishing is, like, I have not had dealings with them in a very, very long time. So, like I said, I'm an old person when it comes to this industry, and I really mean that because, like I said, when I say my first book came out in like 2005, that's dinosaur in especially traditional publishing eyes. Like, you know, that's crazy to them, but
yeah.
Yes, the gatekeepers. I love that comment. It is too slow.
Yeah. Forever.
See, I love extended universes. That's one of the reasons why I'm really excited about everything going on over at World Anvil, being able to share all of that extended universe stuff. I had to re-edit one of the articles I was writing during Abigail's stream today because I realized I had written this huge spoiler in the middle of it. And I was like, I'm going to copy and paste you off to the side. You can show up later, but I just gave away the ending to my series. So got to be careful with it. But I love the immediacy of being able to put that out there and just see what develops and let it grow naturally and have a back and forth with the audience. Because one of the things I want to talk about towards in a little bit, if we go through some of the more of the comments, is how I'm changing the way I'm publishing. Not as an advocation. I'm not saying people should do what I'm doing because it's crazy, it's stupid, and it's weird. But I'm going to be chronicling my journey so people can see how well it works. But I did a very controversial episode of my podcast about a month ago called "What If Publishing Isn't My Dream Anymore?" That I got a lot of emails after that came out. A lot of them started with the phrase of, "Charlie, are you okay?"
Yeah.
Yeah, you definitely cannot write what you want in traditional publishing. Yeah. I get really. That's one of the few things I get gatekeepery about.
Yeah.
And, I don't have boundaries about a lot of things in my life, but I was molested as a child. And I think if you normalize sexuality, certain kinds of sexuality for children too soon, it can be bad. So, but you still need to teach them so they understand what's going on to them is wrong and why it's wrong so that they can tell somebody, because that's how my abuser got away with it. Is I knew it felt wrong, but I didn't know what to say, and they were an authority figure. But yeah, I get really touchy on these issues So definitely. Hello, Tessa. Tessa is going to be one of the people joining me on my race to the finish sprints tomorrow, starting at 4, because there's so much to do, and I'm not going to write long histories of everything. Hello. I hope your doctor's appointment went well.
Yes.
The pronoun I is here. Hello. I don't remember saying hello to you earlier. How are you doing? Yeah, I know a lot of people who read Stephen King as a kid. Like I said, that's why I bring up like the Hellbound Heart. The Hellbound Heart starts with essentially a character masturbating evil into the world. Kind of. It's difficult to explain if you haven't read the book. There's
Okay.
well, he's summoning the demons of pleasure, and as part of that, he is glittering. And yeah, I'm reading this at like, see what is that? That's like 15, I think. And no, I read that in 5th grade, in 8th grade. So I would have been like 13, I think, 13, 14 maybe, when I first read that book. So do as I say, not as I do. Actually, don't do as I say. Never do as I say. That's how you get in trouble.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, I actually tell people, yes, I'm self-published, but yes, I do have paperbacks. But I know so many authors that are full-time, very successful authors, and they don't have a single paperback.
Yeah. The word real is triggering for me. I think I've told the story on here before, so I'm not gonna do it again unless I get like a lot of people in chat saying it. But my first ever experience of the publishing industry had to do with this term real writer and real book. And
I believe you've told us.
Yeah, I just
don't know where.
I've mentioned it on the podcast so many times over the years, and I know I've told it, I think, at least on one stream that I've done. But yeah, I don't like the gatekeeping, because that's what makes it problematic to me, is when writers have this idea that you're only real if you have certain sales or if you're doing certain correct things. Storytelling is a natural right of the human species. It is what made us who we are today. Gathering around the fire, singing our songs, telling our stories, remembering our histories, creating our mythologies so that we could think outside the small world we were trapped in is what makes us human. It is our birthright. And for anyone to say that we are not entitled to tell stories offends me.
Yeah.
I have feels if you can't tell.
And I would say, when don't you?
All the feels. Have fun. We'll probably still be here.
Yes. I have been researching this one particular author because I really like her books, and she's self-published. And I have been astounded. The research I've been doing, the community she has built of fans and how loyal they are. Let me put it to you this way. So I got into it because my cousin was like, you need to read this person's book and let me add you to the Discord and da-da-da-da. And basically, her fans are making the audiobook for her.
Oh my goodness.
And they are organizing a convention meetup for her. Volunteer. So each of one of the fans, they did a group of fans, and each of them play a certain character for the audiobook. And they like are investing time and money into getting mics and making it high quality.
Amazing.
So she can have an audiobook. And let me tell you, she makes good money. And she's only on Amazon. That's what I've been shocked to find. She's on all her books are on KU. So I'm like, wait, this is possible? Like, she has, I think, like at least one assistant. She has 2 paid editors. She has like she's a whole staff that she has, like a whole business around her books. She's a self-published author.
See, now I have to completely redo my publishing dreams video that I did about a month ago because I have a new one now. Like, I did. My imagination didn't stretch to that being a thing.
No, she
Like,
was shocked. She was blown
amazing.
out of the water because she didn't ask for it. Like, she got basically she found out by accident they were organizing a convention because they were just
so
going to
cool.
meet up of fans without her. They didn't think she would want to come. And then she's like,
They didn't think she would want to come.
They didn't think they just wanted to meet each other.
That is so cool.
They have a whole fan fiction server for her books, and they're crazy in there, and they're actively role playing and writing fanfic with each other.
That is so cool. Like,
And it's like 30 people in the Discord, and she has hundreds more on her Facebook and on her Instagram, and they're all like, each platform's like a different group. And I'm just like, the more I look into her, and this is one author, and I'm like, the more I look into it, it's like,
this is
crazy.
This is why platform is important, I have to say, because most of my early work was prior to the social networks becoming a thing because of my unscheduled mental health vacation. And so all my few fans that I do have always email me. So nobody else sees them and they think I'm crazy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just, this one, yeah. Blind people can kill? Yeah, never underestimate. No. Okay, my biggest fight and why I went indie is my first book had this is going to shock everyone, a gay lead character. Heaven forfend, did Charlie write a queer character? That never happens. And my editor told me flat out to change that because no one would ever buy a queer hero. Except for they used the F word instead. Yeah. So, yeah. Never underestimate people. Yeah. You never know. I have to say, one of my nieces has Down syndrome. And so I have been around people with all manner of, I don't like any of the words, so I'd never know which one to use. Handicaps, disabilities, from blindness to deafness to various neurological impairments and the whole spectrum. Never underestimate the goodness or deviousness of someone based on what you think they're capable of.
It's a fly.
Because people are amazing and people can do anything, good or bad.
Yes.
And yeah, it's phenomenal how limiting some people's view of the world is.
Who is this? Are you talking about Alley Cat?
Someone has a name close to yours? Let's see. Actually, I always wonder if you are there. There's an Aligato that follows me on a lot of social networks, and I'm always like, is Alley Cat and Aligato the same person? I don't think they are because I actually know Aligato, and I doubt that you're her because you would have outed yourself. Hello, Nikki. How are you doing? Speaking of somebody that got me watching a lot of Vampire Diaries. Just saying. It's my life. Thank you for the apologies. Look, I'm not saying this to like be like, well, I don't need your, feelings or anything. I share my experiences because they are what made me me. I do not regret any of the things, even the bad things that I have done in my life, because I would not be the person that I am today without them, the good and the bad decisions and the good and the bad things that have happened to me. So it's what makes me me. I'm just hoping people can learn from both my successes and my failures, because my failures have been spectacular over the years. Spectacular. But thank you.
Oh, this is a good question. Basically, you have options.
Yes. Before you get into it, one of my personal favorite options that a friend of mine actually did for her website, she handmade hardcover books. She got the leaves printed and hand bound them and corded them together and put them on her website for $250. She made like 5 of them and sold out in a week.
Wow.
That's my absolute personal like dream goal version of how to do it, because I want to learn how to do book binding.
Yeah.
Now for more realistic options, here's Abigail.
So both of my books are in print. Since I go through Amazon Kindle Direct Publishing, they do have a paperback option. It does not cost anything up front. It's print on demand. So basically, when the person orders it on Amazon or their other storefront, what Amazon distributes it to. That's what I'm trying to say. When a person buys it, they print it immediately and ship it to them. So when the person buys it, in the cost of, obviously with the sale, the print is included. So you don't have to pay anything up front. In places that make you pay up front and you have to buy like 5,000 books or however many, I would consider those scams. Personally, do not recommend them. Think that is a huge risk when you can just do print on demand. There are other places other than Amazon to do print on demand. Trying to remember. I know there's a really good one that I was just looking into. Shoot. I think Lulu is one of those that's not print on demand. Let me look. I think you do have to buy a certain amount of books, like say print 5,000 or more, 1,000 up front in order to let's see. Yeah, I think you have to buy at least a certain amount to start with Lulu.
Yes.
So I recommend print on demand. There is another one, like I said, that I can't remember the name of the. Let me look.
See, the ones I can think of, there's KDP, Ingram Spark.
Ingram Spark is the one I was thinking of. Thank you.
And yes, it is possible. These are versions.
Well, now I gotta get mine.
So this is something that I highly recommend that you do, is get galley copies of your books. So as you can see, these are all versions of the chain. This one is hardbound. This one is paperback. And this was my experiment with this size paperback, because this is actually what I prefer to read. So I wanted to see what my book would look like in this format. So these are old galley prints, because I actually have changed the cover on this book since, because this book originally came out when Twilight was a thing. So, like when it was blowing up. So I tried to make the cover more Twilighty looking with the heart and the chains and all that. And
I've changed it.
That. But I was looking for that one, but half of my office is packed up because I'm moving which room. We're trading rooms for what's what in the house. But this is the first book that I ever got done. And this is actually the mass market one that came out through the publisher that I was with at the time. And it is, I just want to point this out. This was a galley that I got from Lulu. And I'm sorry, the hardback was from Lulu. This is from KDP. This is a better quality book than the one the publisher made. I'm just saying. That's not always true. But when you're thinking about what your book should look like, do put aside a budget to do options, because I still have some of these hardcovers that I keep as like raffles for when I do book signings, and whatnot, or when I do a convention appearance, because they're special. Only 20 of these were ever printed. So they might actually be worth something if I ever amount to anything. But I wanted to have that available. And like I said, with the smaller size, this is I'm old school. This is what I wanted my book to look like, because I like the smaller size books. They fit in my hands better. The cost of publishing one of these is insane, because notice how much more paper is used. So bear that in mind also. Figure out your aesthetic, because that's important. I do think in future there will at least be, for my sci-fi books, this format, just because that's the kind of pulpy sci-fi that I write. So this format will also be available because that's cheaper for people to get, but I will be publishing multiple SKUs just so people can have the kind that they like. Because every time I show this one, because this is the only copy of the book that exists this way, I always get, how do I get one of those? I prefer those pocket books. Where do I get that? And it's not available anywhere. And that's one of the things that I'm working on changing. So bear that in mind. Your audience will have opinions about what form the book comes in, and try to always look at the reviews when picking, because it really is a round robin. 1 week, it feels like it's usually more like a month to a 6-month cycle. KDP will be really good at putting out books, and Ingram Spark will be having problems with missing pages and glue overruns and all kinds of stuff. And then 6 months later, KDP is having problems with missing pages and glue overruns, and Ingram Spark is gold.
Yeah.
So bear that in mind as well. That's going to be something you're going to deal with if you're not going to buy vast quantities of books with your own money to warehouse and ship out from your own website. And yeah, I don't recommend that you do that.
Me neither.
Because that gets expensive really quickly. Really quickly. Because trust me, I buy books for the conventions and everything.
Yeah.
I have way more inventory than I should. But
and I'm just gonna say, having paperbacks and sell them at a local cafe is not an unrealistic dream.
No, it isn't.
At all.
No, it really isn't.
I
will also say, if you have a bookstore in your town, walk in and ask them if they'll carry your book. Some bookstores will do consignment with you. So even if they don't want to order the book, they will allow you to put the book on the shelf, and then basically they will pay you if the book sells, but you're at least in that store. So that's another way that you can get it out. And again, because I keep talking about conventions, because I love conventions and I think authors should do conventions for their genres, try to find out who's running the book table at the convention. Try to talk them into carrying your book. If they do not carry it or are unwilling to carry it, on the day they're setting up for the convention, try to get there. So usually on a Friday night, a Friday morning, Thursday night, try to be there, walk up to the table, have a nice conversation with them, and basically say, hey, do you mind if we put some of these books on the table, and then negotiate a price that they will pay you for each one that sells. A lot of times, even if they're unwilling to order your books, they will put them on the table because that's money in their pocket if they sell.
Mm-hmm.
So having them is a very good thing, especially for personal appearances. One of these days we should do a conventions for writers thing, because
author tube convention.
Yeah. Oh, that would be fun.
That would be so much.
It would be like, we should actually, I wonder if and when it's ever going to be safe to travel again, because that would be so cool. It'd be like our own version of VidCon.
Yes.
But it's all about books and reading. And
yes.
You have the sci-fi hall and the horror hall and the fantasy hall, and the cozy mystery hall and the romance dungeon. Because every convention center has rooms downstairs. And yeah, that would be so much fun. Yes, definitely author goals. Yeah, that would be amazing. Like, yeah. Yeah, our trails and experiences are what make us who we are. And I have PTSD. I don't want people. I'm always afraid people are going to think that I'm just sloughing off some of my bad experiences, like they didn't mean anything to me. I have PTSD. Trust me, I understand being haunted by these things, but a big part of dealing with that is learning to just not hold on.
I think I would prefer someone, even though I know you aren't, I think I'd prefer someone just lighthearted, like, oh, this happened, but like I'd rather that than so many people that are like misusing words like PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
I have feelings about that one.
I've made it very open that if anybody's writing a character with PTSD, I'll talk to them. And I was talking with someone who I think might be in the chat right now about writing a character with PTSD last night, and they were so afraid to ask questions. I'm not afraid to talk about it, but I think you can't let it be something that defines you. And I think that's true of any impairment that you have. I had damaged my leg by the time I was 16. And so walking has been a struggle my life, right? You can't let things hold you back. That's something that I learned from my niece. She was born with Down syndrome. They told my sister to give her up for adoption because she was not going to be worth raising. Yeah. Imagine that, a doctor telling a new mother your child's not going to be worth raising. And she's amazing.
My brother, basically, they said there's a chance that he has Down syndrome and that they should do this test to find out, because they were saying then if it does, you need to have an abortion.
Yeah.
And basically, my dad looked into the data and he was like, wait a second. It's more like the percentage risk of you doing this test and my wife miscarrying because of it, then there is a risk of him having Down syndrome. Why are you doing this test? And even if he does, so what? Like, that's such a horrendous thing. Like,
amniocentesis can lead to miscarriage a lot more often than it actually finds something wrong with the child. Sometimes there is something wrong with the child, like encephalopathy and other issues, but and I understand how it can be really hard for some parents to raise a special needs child, but she has meant so much to my life. I cannot imagine my life without her in it. And so Dahl uses the word disabilities. I don't think it's a bad word to describe it. I like that word too when I think of my own issues, because I can't walk, I can't really bend my back in a lot of directions that I want to, and so I'm literally disabled from certain postures and standing for extended periods of time. So to me, that works in my own head. So I like that too. Yeah, that it can be a touchy subject for some people. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like I said, I'm not trying to be like overly PC about it. It's just I know how. This is why I love the moment that we're living in. Is I'm wanting more people to realize that so many of us are a part of various groups that are not treated well, and to realize how those experiences overlap with other people's experiences, because it feels like people don't understand what it's like to be treated badly until they're treated badly or until it happens to someone close to them. And so by talking about our issues and the way people are overly nice to me when they see me walking with my cane at a convention, it's nice. Like, I get the intent that they're trying to help me out, but learning the difference between finding out if somebody needs help and patronizing someone and treating them like they just can't do things.
I've always been taught that you need to, if you see someone that looks like they might need help because for whatever reason, ask.
Yes.
Don't just grab somebody or Because basically, you're trying to help them to the point that you're assaulting them.
The most embarrassing thing that ever happened to me at a convention is I got there and it was hot and sweaty in the car ride down because it seemed like no matter what angle the car was at, the sun was right on me and I was sweaty. So I immediately hopped into the shower and discovered immediately that I was allergic to the hotel soap and turned bright red. Like I was as red as the background. I mean, I turned bright red. And like it looked like I was blistered. You know, I tried to wash it off, but I was bright red. I was like, this is great. I have 3 days here. And everybody was coming up to me like I was dying. And at a certain point, it's just like I just made a little thing to hang for my badge. Bad allergic reaction to hotel soap. Don't use the soap. The soap's bad. And just put it on there and just pointed at my chest. Because people meant well, because I'm sure I looked like death warmed over. But, you know, it was like people that I know that are not caring about other people, like an author who shall not be named, who is known for their gruff giving no F's about other people, stopped in the hall, took me by the shoulder and said, do you need me to call somebody to help you? Because I later found out they thought I was like dying from a heart attack because I was walking slow with my cane and my skin was all red. And like, it's like, no, I'm fine. Thank you. Thank you.
So what you're telling me is they do actually care.
People care a lot more than you think they do. But yeah, don't just grab somebody. And no, please don't. I almost got knocked down an escalator because somebody was trying to help the old person onto the thing. And I'm just like,
not that old.
That's an ecumenical matter. I agree with you. I'm 43, but I get called
about your age. Do you know that?
I get called old more than you know.
Seriously.
I am the old one. Yes.
Not unrealistic at all.
It is not unrealistic.
Very within reach.
It is. It is something that you can do. And also cafe tours are often a lot easier to do than book tours if you want to do book signings, because cafes are always looking for people to give them an excuse to get more people in to buy coffee. Bookstores, especially now that they're almost exclusively Barnes and Nobles, like there are still some small mom and pop bookstores that if you can support them, do, because they're precious and rare and going away. But Barnes and Noble doesn't care about your book signing. They just don't. Like, that's why they're going out of business. They don't care. But a lot of cafes are more than happy to give them an excuse to be like, you should come in and have some coffee and tea and a biscuit. We have pie. Books, cafes are really good for writers in a lot of different ways. I used to host the local meetups for NaNoWriMo at a local cafe. And they loved it because it gave an excuse for people to come in and buy beverages and lunches and stuff. So cafes are your friends. Yeah, I hope that was helpful for you. How would you do a virtual con? Well, the convention that one of the main conventions I usually go to just did a virtual con. And they did it as like a series of Zoom meetings, which was weird, really weird. I have actually attended a few virtual cons back in the day when the internet was fresh and new and we're trying to figure out what we could do with it. And we tried to set things up that had chat rooms for people to talk in. We tried to set up forums for people to engage each other in. We did a lot of really crazy fun stuff like that. Because, again, a lot of these were before people had modems where video could be transmitted easily. But there are ways to have, because it's all about saying we're going to be here at this time and place. I think, honestly, if I were to hold one today, I would probably try to do it on Discord, because Discord has all of those features baked in. We have a time and a place, and everybody's going to be there. We set up special rooms that have the video chat for whoever's the panel in there, and then you have the chat room, and it's all contained in and of itself. And I think that would be a perfect place to run a virtual con nowadays.
So the author I was talking about, they were planning the in-person meetup, but obviously with the state of the world,
yeah,
that was rendered impossible.
The
So
world is on fire.
they just made a Discord server, and they're doing exactly what you said. Just different chat rooms, scheduled times. They even made a like Cards Against Humanity version with her books, her like concepts of her books.
It's amazing.
I literally am just sitting there like, but I'm friends. Like these are all the same people that are in my D&D group, but they're these fans of this author.
That's
and
amazing.
For anyone who wants to know, which, by the way, I haven't seen her books hit bestseller rank on Amazon very often.
That's interesting.
I happen to know she's selling a lot of books. Her ranking's high. Her overall, what's that, BSR?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
You know what I'm talking about.
There's too much word salad on Amazon to keep it straight.
But her actual, like, within the category she's in, she's not low, but she's not number one.
Mm.
But anyways, so the author I'm talking about is K.M. Shea, and she also she writes fairy tale retellings.
Oh wow, I have some hopes of doing that soon.
She also has a pen name Am Soma, which it's a lit RPG. Hilarious! I just finished the series. She has a great sense of humor, and just they're really, really good. But just she's so busy. She outright says on her website, I would love to help other fellow writers. I don't have time. So she's not doing this to be like, let me sell a book, a nonfiction book. How do I write books? She's just successful. Just, you know what I'm saying?
I only just discovered Lit RPG, and I am so excited for it. So I will definitely when this is over, send me that name because I will forget it otherwise. I can put the link to her. Yeah. She has a pen name, and then I'm sorry, the Cards Against Humanity thing just like destroyed me because one year at a convention, I was sitting out on the patio where I usually sit and hold court, as they say, and all these people just started coming out of the hotel and going, I understand why you're married to him now. Yeah, I get it. I finally get it. And just like this parade of people are walking by, and I'm just like, what the hell did Brian do? What is going on in there? And come to find out, he was playing Cards Against Humanity with a bunch of people in the main lobby, and he's not allowed to play Cards Against Humanity at that convention anymore. He found a way to take Cards Against Humanity too far. Because if there's anyone who could do it, it's somebody that I am friends with or related to in some way. Yeah, I think that would be really fun. That might be something that we should look at in the future. Because I don't want to take any thunder away from anything. And I know next month, Cache, Sid, and a lot of other people are going to be doing a big diversity thing on YouTube next month. And I don't want to steal anything away from that because I'm really excited about that. So, but yeah, we should definitely try to figure out. That actually gives us time to plan and figure out when that would be a thing we might want to do. Because, you know what? That might be a fun thing to try to do in December when everybody's got their hangover from Nano, where we could just hang out and talk about what we did and what's going on. And it would be a much better, like, no pressure post Nano event. So maybe December? Let's think about that.
Yes.
Because I think that would be amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people, you kind of get the sense that they do have it from being around them. And then some people, you hear their story and you're like, how are you, like, sane? Like, how do you just act sane? Like, that seems like it shouldn't.
I was doing a panel once and we were talking about inappropriate touching, and I told a story and 3 people in the audience just jumped up and said, you know, you were raped, right? Like, they were afraid I didn't know. like what was going on, because I'm just telling the story, because it's one of those things that like some people don't understand, like this is inappropriate, you shouldn't do this, you know, and that some stuff that makes it into romance books as tropes, you know. And yeah, I tend to be a little too matter of fact, and people wonder, like, you know, that was bad, right? That's not supposed to happen to you. Like, yes, I really know that was bad, but if I get mired in it, I will never come back out. Is it worth it to have a 30K novella printed? Yes.
This is like 26K.
Yeah, I don't have mine in here. I actually have a book that's about that size that was printed out. I have actually printed books as small as 16.5, I think. Okay. That one, you can get a really good price in buying them, and again, a lot of my experiences at conventions and whatnot, people love them because they're very inexpensive. They're quick reads. People can actually buy them from you, read them really quickly, and then talk to you at the event later. So they're really good, like morning sellers, just putting that out there into the universe. And they sold fairly well on Amazon as well. Yeah. So, which I was surprised that, you know, something that small. But again, you have to know your market and you have to know your audience, because especially if you're doing print on demand, as long as you're not doing it with Ingram Spark, most of the other places are free setup. Ingram Spark, unless you do their membership thing, either way, it still costs you some money to do it with them. And I know Ingram Spark, unless you have their membership thing, I don't think if you have the membership, they charge you for if you have to change the file. But I know if you don't have the membership thing, you only get to change the file like once, and then they charge you.
Yeah.
Mandy Lynn just did a whole video about her experience, her maddening experience with Ingram Spark about that. So if you want more information, definitely check her channel out. Yeah. But yeah, know your audience, because as long as you're not putting a lot of money into it, this has always been my philosophy as an indie writer. If it's not a lot of money out of my pocket, I don't have to recoup too much to make it worth doing. Yeah. So if I can put it up on KDP print for free, right? Because I already have the book cover. I already have the back blurb. I'm using Vellum to do the... Vellum is amazing. I'm using it to make my ebooks. So it actually has a setting. You just tell it your cut size for the book, and it will make the print ready version of the book for you as well. So I don't have to worry about paying for that. Yeah. So as long as it's not like putting you out money, because that's the biggest thing you need to think about as a writer. If we're going to get like down to brass tacks here,
return on investment.
Return on investment is hard to do as a writer. You know, I get so to be advertising your book, because yes, you need to be advertising your book, but you need to be very smart about how you advertise your book. You are, depending on the cost of your book, you're going to be making like a quarter to a couple bucks off of each of those books. If you're paying $1.50 for somebody to see your ad, and on average, remember, anytime you do advertising, this is my old life. This is one thing I do know quite well, right? It's the 10-10-10 rule. Of the people that see your ad, roughly 1 out of 100 will take some sort of action on it. Out of those people that like click it or actually stop to look at it, okay? So 1 out of 100 will maybe look at your ad that see it. Out of those who take time to look and see it, 1 out of 100 may click through to see your page to see if they're interested in your book. And of those, 1 to 10 out of 100 will actually go through with the purchase. It's called the 10-10-10 rule. Keep dividing down your numbers by 10%. If you're spending $1.50 per viewer, to see your ad, you're going to spend on average $100 to sell one book. One book. Be careful on that. Know your numbers, know what you're investing in, because that's where we get underwater so quickly. I'm not saying not to use an editor for your book. If you can afford an editor, a good editor is better than gold. They will point out stuff to you that you never would have been able to see. But $300, let's be honest here. If we're doing KDP, right? The average book on KDP sells for about $2, $3, right? That's what they recommend, right? So if you're selling your book for $3, you're making maybe, let's say 1 to 2, depending on whether you're in good standing with them. Because I know they say that it's 70%. They lie. Amazon lies. Just bear that in mind. So you're going to be making $1 to $2 a book, right? So if you've paid $300 for your editor, you have to sell 150 books to make your money back. Bear that in mind. Just keep that crystal clear in your mind. It is considered a feat to sell 1,000 books.
Yep.
Like once you make once you sell 1,000 copies of a book, not like in total of your back catalog or anything, of an individual title, selling 1,000 books is a huge feat in this market that we're in. If you have to sell 300 to break even on your editing, and you're spending, and then you pay for your cover, and maybe you're paying for marketing on top of that, you are paying other people to read your book. And if you're fine with that and you can afford that, more power to you. There are a lot of services out there that are great if we can afford them, but you need to know where you're at. Starting out at first, try to get some beta readers and critique partners that are going to help you out so you don't have to pay for editing. Trust me, in the Harry Potter books that I own, there are typos in them. They happen, and there were a team of editors going over those books with a fine-tooth comb because Scholastic wanted their money, right? So they will seep in, but be very careful what you're spending money on so you're not making it so that you're paying for your job rather than being paid by your job. Because I think a lot of writers are starting to fall into this hole where, I have to pay for a cover. A good cover, honestly, if you have to choose between paying for a cover and paying for an editor, pay for the cover.
Yes, I agree with that.
A good story with bad grammar, people will work their way through. A good story with a bad cover, no one will give a second look to. It's sad. I don't want that to be true. We all want to say don't judge a book by its cover. But like I said, in trying to be all Twilighty, this was the original cover of this book, and it sold okay. People liked it. When I changed the cover, which I couldn't find the current cover of it, when I changed the cover, it sells regularly now. So, well, it did before I stopped running ads on it. But, but covers matter so much. Just don't put yourself in a hole. And don't feel that you have to do something. Do what's comfortable for you and your budget and your goals.
And experiment with ads.
Yes.
Because they may say use a suggested amount with Amazon bids and stuff. And they may say, only, advertise on this place. And they may say use these keywords, experiment, bid low, use different keywords, figure out what works.
I don't think I've ever paid more than 17 cents a click on Amazon because I keep that tight because I have a spreadsheet that I do up anytime I do an ad campaign on how much am I expecting to make back from this to make you break even. And I don't like being a ruthless business person because it's creativity and it's fun, but there is a business side, and we have to. And that side, watch it.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Like I if I had a penny for every time I heard a story and knew a person whose parents were told they would never be able to do anything because of X, Y, or Z. I mean, I would be very rich. Yeah. Like, people underestimate people.
Yeah.
So much. And
my mom had me when she was 40. She was 40 years old when she birthed me.
Yeah.
And the doctors, after years of, because she had trouble conceiving me, years of surgery and shots, and they had the audacity to be like, you know, this is a risk to you, right? Like, now that, oh, she's finally pregnant, and it's like, you know, this is dangerous. Like, are you sure you want, like, okay, if I'm already pregnant, like, do you think I would have gone through all this if I wasn't sure? Doctors, they frustrate me.
Doctors can be very frustrating. I'm sure you're gone by now, but bye, Alley Cat, if you watch the replay. The hotel apologized profusely, and they did give us a discount on the room. But yeah, I have skin trouble anyway, as you can tell from my nice red face. But I looked like I just got up that morning and went, I'm going to do a facelift, and put my face in boiling water. Like, I looked like a cooked lobster. I mean, it was, you know, that scene in dating myself here, Death Becomes Her, when she has all the plastic surgery and everything stretched all back and her skin's all red. That's what I looked like. It was fabulous. Yeah.
Slightly different, because I would say you could mix YouTube streams.
I think that could be something that you could do. I think that would be a wonderful gateway kind of a thing to do, is have portals on various social network platforms. Find people that are very comfortable doing TikTok videos or Instagram live streams or YouTube live streams or videos to bring people in. But the main thing would be us getting to talk to each other. Because to me, my favorite thing about conventions, like, don't get me wrong, I've got to meet a lot of celebrities and a lot of writers over the years, and George Takei is my heart, and that's all I'm going to say about that for now. But it's the people, it's getting to meet each other. That's what makes conventions special. So that's why I was thinking of doing something like Discord or something like that, because that way the emphasis is much more on interacting between each other. And the panels and rooms and stuff would be there to try to facilitate that interaction much more than, you know, getting people in. There's the book. Everything just went crazy. I can't wait. Like I said, my reading list.
Really, really good. Like, can I just give you a little synopsis?
Yeah, go for it.
Basically, it's actually kind of technically science fiction too.
Ooh.
Because it's set sometime in the future where there's full immersion, like it's like virtual reality games, but they go into tanks and they wake up in the world, the game. So basically, this girl is supposed to go into this alien shooter game, but her cousin works for the company that does the video games, and he pulls a prank on her and sends her to a game they used to play, like a medieval fantasy multiplayer.
Okay.
And she's this ridiculous elf with like pink hair and tattoos, and she's a dancer, which is like a useless class. She's like, oh, so she knows she has to, in like an hour until she, like, her session's up and she'll wake up. So she's like, hey, I'll just deal with it. And then in the middle of her trying to just get through this and this horrible character that he like stuffed her into, basically the whole system goes offline and they get put onto backup servers, but the backup servers are corrupted. So the whole server are in these tanks are stuck in game and cannot get off. So basically, the cousin sends her message and says, the only way right now, we're trying to get you out, but we don't know how. The only way you can get out is if you beat this boss, which we have set up automatically to log people who are involved in this boss off, because we have to check for cheating. So the only way you're getting off is if you beat this boss, but it's a one-time beat.
Oh, no.
And, well, you can try over and over again, but they've been trying for years and could never beat him.
Oh, my goodness.
But anyone who's not in the party would not get logged off. That's all I'm gonna say. It's so good. So she
That
has to
sounds fun.
beat this impossible boss in this terrible character that has like terrible reputation levels, is a dancer, so she basically gives buffs and
The reason I turned my camera off is I started making angry faces because I used to play Star Wars Galaxies, and one of my favorite classes was the dancer class that it had, because social person gets to chat all the time, and I figured out how to use it in combat in crazy, insane ways. I'm just like, this is the book series for me.
that's basically the plot, because everyone makes fun of her, but she figures out how to use this character.
Oh, we had so much fun. Like, oh my goodness. Galaxies was the dream. It was the best game ever made until it wasn't. And then it was again, and then it wasn't, and then it died. And now we have No Man's Sky, which is basically OG Galaxies, except for without the Star Wars stuff. That I will agree to that only if I can talk my husband into doing it, because I have a problem of playing cards that are too outrageous. It's one of the few places I get weirdly prudish. I don't know why. I am one of the most inappropriate people in the world, and somehow Cards Against Humanity, I'm like, well, I can't play that. That'll bother people. I have issues. My husband, on the other hand, has no compunctions whatsoever. Oh, the words will flow with him. Yeah, we need more, because there's so much that we don't see, because I don't know. I know the first time I ever mentioned that I had PTSD at a convention, people were shocked because they're like, but you're so happy and bubbly. And I'm just like, I've learned to control things.
Yeah.
Because we have this idea that if you're tortured forever.
Yeah. And it's very obvious.
Yeah. And yeah, we need to talk about all of our stuff, because then we realize we're all weird, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
Usually you have to remind people around you certain things. Yeah. I have the fun, Brandon. You're working so hard on your cover design now. Yeah, cover design is a thing. I've done the covers for every book I've ever done, even the one book. I am not an artist. I want to say this up front. Everybody yells at me. I am not an artist. I am a graphic designer. I learned how to do graphic design. If I have a set of instructions in front of me, I can execute them like any other computer executes algorithms. If you're like, paint a picture of something. No. Tell me what. Is this an elf? Is it a bear? What? I am not an artist. I am a graphic designer. I need input. Yeah, cover design is something that I think is approachable for a lot of people, a lot more people than, especially now. Doll, I would recommend you go and look at the trends of book covers. Book covers have gotten a lot more simplified and have gotten a lot cleaner lately. So it's actually a bit easier to use something like the Noun Project, which is something you might want to look at, which it's $10 a month, and it's all you can eat icons and symbols that you can recolor and do effects on. I use that for some of the like seals and stuff for the stories that I do. I use it on a lot of the YouTube videos. A lot of the symbols for my covers and stuff are in there. You might want to look at that as a place to get some kind of easy and cheap stock art. But cover design has simplified a lot recently. That's the current trend right now. So I think it's a lot easier for us to do our own, even if we don't consider ourselves artistically inclined. But look at the conventions of the genre that you're writing in and see what you want to stand out, but not too much.
Yeah.
there's this wonderful phrase that what the consumer is always looking for is familiar yet slightly different.
Yeah.
So when you're thinking of the marketplace, you want to look like you belong on the shelf with everything else, but be just different enough that people notice you and go, "Ooh, what's that one?" So I don't know if that's helpful or not, but there it is.
I completely agree with you. And it's just insisting and being like that you don't know what you're talking about. You need to do this. It's like,
yeah, it's. I have a lot of deeply personal beliefs about stuff, but yeah, to me, like I said, it's one thing if the child has their heart on the outside of their body, or they literally don't have a brain in their head, and the child is just going to rot and endanger the mother. There are things, but as somebody who's been around people their entire life, like my niece was born when I was, I think, about 7 or 8 years old. So most of my like living memory, she's been a part of my life. And just so you don't think my sister had a child like really young, there's 11 years difference between me and my sister in age. But you know, I've known so many people that were supposed to never be able to do anything, and like just don't. You know, life's a struggle for all of us. Don't make it a struggle before it has to be.
Yeah.
Like it's that wonderful scene from The Birdcage that I quote all the time: subtract, don't add. Like that's my motto for life. Like whatever's going on in your life right now, subtract, don't add. Like we got enough drama, we got enough issues, we got enough everything else. Just subtract, don't add. Like people will bring the drama. You see, I actually gifted a virtual con gift pack. Oh, that's cool.
Very nice. It was the stupid.
Interesting. That's interesting. I ended up getting a personalized message from Brandon Roth because he was supposed to be there, and they drew people's names at random who had pre-registered for the convention. Like they gave us our money back, you know, because we couldn't actually go, but they drew names, and people got randomly were sent like personalized messages from some of the celebrities that were supposed to be there, and I got one from Brandon Roth, and I was just like, ah! Like I fangirled. Not as much as I did when I met John Barrowman. Well, I didn't mean John Barrowman because my husband would not let me be too close to John Barrowman for many reasons.
Oh.
But I let me put it to you this way: I have a bad back. I have a bad legs. I cannot like stand or walk for extended periods of time. It was standing room only, and I was late getting down to the panel. I stood for 2.5 hours making sounds like a Beatles fan in the Ed Sullivan Theater in 1955 until John Barrowman was off stage. And then my husband escorted me away, and I did not realize that I had been standing the whole time because I love John Barrowman. Like,
hilarious.
Torchwood, Captain Jack.
And he's a great actor too.
And he's a good guy. He's such a good guy. He is so sweet.
And he's a fantastic singer.
Yes.
He's a dancer.
Yes. And his drag is on point. Did I skip? I feel like I skipped a bunch. I think it just jumped on me. Yeah, we were here. I think. No, we were down here. It moves. I don't know what's going on half the time.
Bottom.
There we are. Here we are.
Yeah.
There we are. Well, every time I go down to the bottom, it's doing this thing to me lately where it rocks up and down. So even if there's not a new comment coming in, it looks like it is.
Oh.
I don't know why it's doing that, but yeah, it's been doing that for me for a couple streams lately. It'll just start moving like randomly, like up and down. But I figure it's just like, why are you using the system so much? I know you give us money, but stop. We didn't mean to actually use it. More for you. Ooh, Supernatural. I'm a bit behind in watching Supernatural because life. But oh, the Winchesters are my life. I love them. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. I have a whole drawer of people that I got to meet. One of the best things that ever happened, like if you ever amount to anything, let me give you one piece of advice. As a 10-year-old child who thought that they would never be special, that hated everything about themselves, I remember going to a convention and Robin Curtis, who played Savick in Star Trek 3, was there. And I went and got my thing signed earlier in the day. You know, I got a picture signed and got to meet her. Later that evening, we were sitting behind her. She was judging the masquerade. And she heard my voice and she turned around and said, "Oh, hi, how are you doing?" And she called me by name. And I looked to see if my badge was on, and I had my badge down on hanging off my shirt. So there's no way she could have seen my badge. And I realized she remembered like everyone she encountered. I'm not saying you have to be that good, but be nice to people. You never know when it's going to be like that moment that they remember and cherish. Like, I'm sure she has no idea who I am today, but to this day, I think of how much it meant to 10-year-old me that this person from Star Trek cared enough to know my name.
Yeah.
Like it just be nice to people. Like, can we just make that a rule?
Yeah.
Just be nice to people. Yeah. Yeah, it's a thing. And learning, not going to get into all that right now. Yeah, names are the worst for me. I'm really good at remembering faces. So I will know if I've met somebody, but remembering their name, I get so bad. I get so bad. And it's even worse because two of my closest friends, their name is one letter different from each other, like fully spelled out. First and last name. It's one letter different from each other. And so I'm always texting the wrong person. And I feel terrible because I'm like, I've known you all for decades. I should be able to tell you apart, but there's literally one letter difference in your names.
That's what I say.
But they don't do it.
Different ones.
Yes. Ah, okay. That's cool.
So would I.
I have to say, John Barrowman was a lot, like he was out and about and doing things with people. So if you ever see that John Barrowman is coming to a convention near you, try to get there, because he does even some of the smaller conventions, because he is just an awesome person. But the two people that some of the people that I would also say, if you like them at all, Jason Momoa will hang out with the people, and he is amazing. I've had beers with Jason Momoa on several occasions. He is such a nice guy. He is everything. He is Ronan from Stargate Atlantis. If you've ever watched that show, that wasn't him acting. That was him being himself. That laugh, everything. If you like Jason Momoa, find a con that he's at. What?
How did you not fall in love?
It's my husband was standing behind me the whole time, making sure I did nothing untoward. Because I think that's the bad joke with the John Barrowman thing. Because you know how couples would do those jokes of like, there's the list of it's not cheating if, and John, I'm not lying, John Barrowman's on the list, and I'm like, he's in a happy relationship, nothing's gonna happen. He's like, I know, but just because it was okay to put his name on the list doesn't mean I'm gonna let you be too close to him. Like, nothing's gonna happen. Look at me, I'm a potato, his husband's hot. Nothing's gonna happen here. I know, but oh, I love John Barrowman so much. So much love. And Eddie McClintock is the other one that I was going to say, if you're a Warehouse 13 fan. I'm actually friends with him on a couple social networks, and we chat occasionally because he's that kind of a person. Like, if he likes you at a convention, he will give you like his, I'm sure it's not his like personal private Facebook. It's like the one that he has for cool people he meets at conventions Facebook. Mm-hmm. But he's a really nice guy, a really good artist. And if you're a Warehouse 13 fan, yeah, he's the character he played on Warehouse 13. He's so awesome. I loved him a lot. He's great. And I can never remember the actor's name because I always want to say his dad's name. But the dude who played the Crossroads demon who became the devil in Supernatural, I can't think of the actor's name right now.
I know who you're talking about. I don't remember his name.
He is fun at parties. If you're at a convention and he's at a convention, let him know when your party is. He will show up, and he is a blast. He is so much fun. He's down to earth, and he has stories, and he's been on everything. Remember, he was on Firefly, he was on Star Trek, he's been on everything, and he's got stories and is not afraid to spill tea. He's fun. Yeah. I think it could be a lot of fun. Or word stock. I like word stock. I need to see if I can get that. Like, I'm not spending money. Somebody says I have to buy Skyrim next week.
I want to know what type of character, because it says a lot about a person what race they pick.
What in the world? Sorry, a giant crane just went down our little country road. I don't know if you heard that or not, but I'm like, are we having an earthquake? Like, the floor started shaking, and then there was noise. I'm like, what in the world is going? Is this the big one? We don't. Oh no, we live close to the New Madrid Fault. Last time the New Madrid Fault went, the Mississippi River flowed backwards. Okay, it rang church bells in Massachusetts. No, it was just a giant crane that was on the road for some reason. Who around here needs a freaking crane? That's
apparently for one.
Somebody's going to be using that for pumpkin chucking. Because that's where I live. Oh, Machine Gun Kelly got nominated for a VMA? For what? Like, I'm not anti-Machine Gun Kelly. There are some songs by him that I like, and I pretend to like him a lot more because it really upsets a friend of mine. Because not controversial opinion, I don't like Eminem.
As a person or as a rapper? Or
as a rapper, I'm not a big fan of his music, and I think he's gotten better over time, but I don't buy his whole my homophobia is performative thing. I don't buy it.
And does that mean you don't like NF?
Who?
NF?
NF.
Oh, you gotta look up NF.
Okay.
It's basically the style rapping of Eminem with really deep, because all NF talks about is depression. He's very open and honest about his feelings and is very poetic.
That's the name. Yes.
I know who that is. I don't think he plays the devil. Mark Shepard doesn't play Lucifer. He
ended up taking over hell.
Yeah.
That's what I meant, that he became the devil. He became the one who took over hell.
Yeah.
He being all semantic on me over there.
But there is another character that's Lucifer. So
yes, I know. Just thought it was funny. I was like, oh, this is going to turn into a fan of SmackDown when I have to do a graphic that comes over. Fart!
I was just clarifying because I thought you meant Lucifer at the time.
No, I was thinking the Crossroads Devil, because every time I think of him, I just think Crossroads Devil, and I want to call him Moose because he always calls him Moose. So in my head, for some reason, all I can remember is Crossroads Devil, Moose, and all the other names go out of my head. Sorry. I'm sorry to interrupt your story.
Where was I? I don't know what we were talking about. All I can think about is
Sam and Dean Winchester. And now for the After Dark portion.
Oh, NF. I recommend NF greatly. So it's basically this style of Eminem, but with substance, dare I say.
I'll have to check that out. I listen to all kinds of music. I'm a real big fan of grime music, and so I listen to a lot of Stormzy and D-Triple-E, D-Double-E. I love D-Double so much. And AJ Tracy is I love his music too much. A little bit too much. A little bit too much. Koji Radical. If you like rap in any way, shape, or form, Koji Radical, you have to look him up. He is a musician who was a poet. He's an honest-to-God poet, and people told him he should be doing slam poetry, and he was like, I don't want to do that. That's not my thing, because, slam poetry is a very specific type of poetry, and they're like, well, then just get a beat and read your poems over them. And he started doing that, and they're phenomenal.
Yeah.
They are phenomenal. If you're not familiar with Koji Radical, and then all my nerdcore.
Enough as the lyrical just genius. So yeah, definitely my type.
And then of course there's all the nerdcore. I love my nerdcore. Like Mega Ran is my life. Actually, right now, the thing that I have most on repeat, other than Ghost, because I'm obsessed, it's a thing, is the new album that came out by Cybertronic Spree. If you're not familiar with them, they are a Transformers cosplay band that does nothing but 80s hard rock. They are amazing.
We've already discussed that. I totally love that.
And their new album, they decided for their first album, they would have to shoot themselves if they didn't do a full cover album of the original Transformers the movie 1985 soundtrack for the animated movie. So that's their first album. It is out. It is phenomenal. It is so good. It is so good. Like, I can't tell. Every time I need to write a serious scene, I just play their version of the death of Optimus Prime. Oh my goodness, so good, so good. All my love in my heart goes to them, and they are amazing. If you don't know the Cybertronic Spree, you have, if for no other reason than to just smile, look up their video for Cybertronic Warrior. It's an original song by them, where they did an entire movie of Transformers fighting. It is so good. It is so good. It is. I love them. Yeah. Yeah. He's good on so many things. And the first convention I ever saw him at, it was him and his dad. And it's just that whole family. They're really good people. He always plays the dirty scum bucket in like everything that he's in. But he is such a nice guy. He's a really nice guy. If you ever get a chance to go somewhere, trust me, you will probably meet him if he's there. Could you go into the nuances of different sci-fi genres? Back on topic. Okay. So, the space opera is very specifically a scientific romance in the old sense of the term. Technically, it is supposed to have a swashbuckling hero and is primarily focused on adventure. If your story is about adventure, it is a space opera. Space opera also traditionally cannot take place on one planet. It doesn't necessarily have to take place on ships. It doesn't necessarily have to have space combat in it, but it should be on more than one planet, technically speaking. My personal favorite science fiction series of all time, in all ages of all of everything, is Dune by Frank Herbert. That is a planetary romance, at least the first book in the series. And if you've read any of those books, they're really good for the different genres. But the first one I'm going to go into, just because I think if you haven't read the book, you've at least probably seen one of the movies or the miniseries. A planetary romance generally takes place on a singular planet. If it can take place on multiple, for example, Dune, we have the opening scenes are on Caladan, and we have a couple other scenes on a couple other planets in the book, but most of it takes place on Arrakis. But Arrakis is a character in the story. Arrakis is as important to the story as Paul or his mother or any of the Harkonnen soldiers or any of the Fremen that we meet. A planetary romance digs deep into the story of the setting. So if your setting is the key and it takes place on a singular planet, that is a planetary romance. The one genre most people get confused with space opera most is military sci-fi, because there's a lot of overlap here. If your story takes place and your characters are a part of a military industrial complex, for lack of better terms, and it deals with the conflict between rival factions. It is a military sci-fi. Star Trek, in many of its episodes, are military sci-fi, where we're dealing with, say, the Dominion War in Deep Space Nine. That's very much a military. When I'm talking about military sci-fi wise, Star Wars is space opera, because the focus is not actually on the war or the military aspects, but on the adventure aspects of it. That's why we can have these side quests where Luke goes to Dagobah and has to train with Yoda. That would be out of place in a military sci-fi story. I hope that helps. There are a lot of subgenres in here, so those are the ones I think that are most prevalent that people experience and write in. So if that did not cover a genre that you specifically wanted covered, definitely ask, and I'll go into more detail about it. But I think that those are the ones that are most easily confused. Just remember, if you're telling an adventure story in space, it is space opera. If your story could be set in the Old West, it's a space western. If it is set exclusively within a military ship or fleet or what have you, wing commander, I just lost his last name, but Jack, the Lost Fleet books, I just lost his last name. But if you've read the Lost Fleet books, those are military sci-fi books. I would even say that his Pillars of Reality books eventually went that way, even though they started off as kind of steampunky fantasy books. A lot of his work eventually goes that way. But hopefully that... I could literally be here for the next 3 hours just going through sci-fi subgenres, because there's so many. So definitely let me know if I didn't hit the ones. Everything I've heard about your story makes me think that it's going to be more space opera because of the chances for adventure, unless it's being set on a single planet. But since you're talking about elder gods and like portals and stargates and jump gates and stuff, it leads me to believe that it's going to be off of one planet. So hopefully that helps. It gets really messy really quick. I'm in the state of Missouri.
I live in North Carolina.
And I was born here.
I was not.
And I dream of California all the time. Yeah, there are some songs by him I do kind of like. His
attitude.
Yeah. And like I said, most recently, I found I'm hoping he's maturing. Like, that's all I'm going to say. I hope. Wow, it is raining outside. Okay. It's bright and sunshiny and raining.
Ooh. Like my mom calls that liquid sunshine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I loved the Lucifer, like the first 5 seasons. Like I've enjoyed many things after that, and I'm so grateful for Castiel coming on the show. Like I don't think it would be what it is without him, but those first 5 seasons are like, if you're scared of getting into Supernatural because they're so supernatural, if you can stop after the first 5 seasons, I think in a lot of ways you see the best of the show in a lot of ways, because that's when they had a story that they wanted to tell, and then the network went, we want more, and they went, okay. And if you love it, keep going. But the story is so good, so tight. Yeah, the Lucifer plot arc was phenomenal. Speaking of pumpkin checking, my brother Trebuchet. Wow, that just doesn't sound safe. Like, that doesn't sound safe at all. Like, when I was a kid, one of my best friends had a cannon that their dad bought for them. And the fact that none of us have giant gaping holes or missing limbs is a miracle. I don't even want to think if we had access. Like, I know what we did to each other with crossbows and axes. I don't even want to think if we had access to a trebuchet. Oh, that just, yeah, I hope that helped, because especially when it deals with space opera, like, I think most people, if you would include any TV series, with very few exceptions, with the exception of, say, Battlestar Galactica, very clearly military sci-fi. We can put that in a couple other genres too, but as far as the big ones go, so Battlestar Galactica I would take out of the running, and Firefly I would take out of the running. But most of the other like spacey sci-fi shows that I can think of that have ever happened are space opera, and that shows just the gamut, like everything from the old Lost in Space to the new Lost in Space. Everything in between, space opera. Which is what?
Doctor Who would kind of fall
Doctor,
that.
For a lot of them, the Doctor Who would actually be like, I've thought about doing a series of videos on genre, because I get asked about it a lot because I have bugaboos, and just using different Doctor Who episodes and being like, if you want to understand this genre, watch this episode of Doctor Who, because this genre, and just, the Doctor Who guide to genre, because you could really break them down really well.
Both to Save the Cat and publishing genres, you could do both.
Yeah, the Save the Cat genres I do love, just because they focus me on writing. Because to me, that's what they're for, is just to give you an idea what the main point of your story is, and not to get lost. Like I said in last week's stream, when I started hitting the wall in my book, it's because I thought I was writing a Monster in the House story. Yeah. And it wasn't. So I kept trying to, and I would have had that problem even if I didn't know the Save the Cat genres, because I thought I was writing a certain kind of like spooky story, and it wasn't. It wasn't that kind of story at all. And being able to have vocabulary, if nothing else, like learning these genres are going to help you sell your books in some ways, because people do search for them. But it also helps you get an idea of what you are wanting to do in the story, because if you're wanting to write, like, I already know the space opera I'm working on is going to be a Magipunk story, because I'm in love with several Magipunk space operas, and I'm going for it. But, that tells me certain things that are expected, because there are conventions and tropes that are expected, and how you play with them matters. And that's, as far as the writing goes, that's the only time genre should really come into it for me.
Yeah. Is
when you're trying to figure out, like, what do I want to do here? Is this going to be like a purely supernatural horror, kind of a Lovecraft thing, just thinking of Laura's story with the Elder Gods and stuff? Because then you're talking about possibly weird sci-fi, which is a thing that sometimes shows up on some category lists. Is it supernatural science fiction? Because sometimes it gets classified as supernatural horror, depending on how much the horror. I have to be very careful to enunciate that word, because my accent does not want to. It depends on how much the supernatural horror you want to bring out. That's all that's important here in the writing. But it's important to know going forward. You're in North Carolina. I don't think I've ever been to North Carolina. I've been like almost every, like, we moved a lot when I was a kid, and my dad liked to take trips. So I've been a lot more places than I've lived. But I don't know that I've ever been, like, I don't think I've been to either of the Carolinas, Georgia, or Florida.
You'll have to come. I'll give you a tour.
I was told that I could never go to Florida, because if I ever went to Tampa, I probably wouldn't leave. That I would get sucked into a black hole and never come out. But not the kind that you're thinking of. Apparently there's a big goth scene there, and it would just consume me whole. Just like, whoo. And I'm just like, I don't want to be goth in the heat. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, if I'm going to go somewhere for the goth scene, I'm going to find one in Canada. Like, then I could wear all the clothes some of the time, because it still gets hot up there. But all of the clothes some of the time, because gothic clothing is not summer friendly.
No.
At all. The fifth and sixth season. I missed something.
Because I know that's not Supernatural.
Yeah, because they're up to like 15 or 16, 17, 18, 20, 25, 30. There's so much Supernatural.
I don't think you're talking about Leverage. I would love if you were talking about Leverage.
It could also be Battlestar Galactica, because I know they're talking about a sequel series to Battlestar Galactica that's going to be coming out soon. Because I was shocked at how much on Peacock I really like, because, and it's free, by the way, because if you don't mind ads, but a lot of the old Sci-Fi Channel shows are on there. So if you miss watching Eureka and Warehouse 13 or any of those like older, Sci-Fi Channel shows, they're all up there. And we're currently rewatching Warehouse 13 because it's awesome.
Do they have? Because I used to love to watch Face Off.
Face Off is on there.
It is? Okay.
Yeah. I don't know how much is on there because I don't think I've clicked in on it, but I did see it on the list. Face Off is definitely on the list.
Awesome. Because we got rid of cable and there was no way to watch it.
Yeah, they have the worst like layout. Like they make Amazon Prime look like they know what they're doing and making an app. Like at least it's divided so there's TV. What is it? It's television, movies, and news, I think, are the three main tabs that they have because of NBC News and MSNBC. But then when you get into TV, it's a cluster, and just the weirdest thing in the world. Slide everything so that the hidden thing that's off let's see if I can do this right, on this side of the screen slides onto your screen, because hidden off over here is the browse the entire category. It's not at the end of the list that they're showing you. It's hidden at the front of the list, and you have to scroll the list backwards one to see the browse all. Because that makes sense, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It is not a well-designed app, but it has a lot of really good shows on it, so it will hopefully get better. It must be a psychological thriller to center around a mystery, death, and finding a killer. Thrillers. To me, a psychological, for me, and what is selling in the market right now, as far as I understand, under the label of psychological thriller, because I have some friends who write this genre, psychological thriller is kind of your Thomas Harris really getting into the mind of what's going on now, much more than any of the whodunit, whydunit stuff.
I think it doesn't necessarily have to be like a mystery. Like they don't have to solve anything necessarily. Not like in a whodunit type of way, but it is more a getting into the mind of the.
Yeah, it's like the psychological part is really taken seriously now.
Yes. I love it. That's my favorite part of all mysteries, and like I judge a mystery like, okay, what was their motive? Like what was going on? Like why did they do this? And a lot of mysteries deal with that. If they don't, it just comes across as very cheesy to me.
See, that's my jam though. I love a good cheesy mystery. Like if it would be an episode of Murder, She Wrote, I'm in. Like if you want me to buy
cozy or like not.
I would say like a thriller.
They're just be evil.
Yeah.
They had no reason to do anything, and there's or at least the reasoning behind it isn't explained.
Here, I'm going to spoil every Thomas Harris book ever written. They did it because they're queer. Every book. Every book. This one is a dude who wants to be a lady. This one's a dude who wants to have sex with men, but finds it hard to do that, so he kills them and eats them, because that's the same thing. And yeah, every one of his villains does it because they have a weird sex thing that is not heterosexual.
I mean, weird sex things I get. If you watch Criminal Minds, you get it. Not always the case. But
I know.
Most, at least from research I've done, seems to not have anything to necessarily do with being queer and just have it all that in common.
Somebody's going to send me a quote because in the movie, I think they put it in Clarice. No, I think in the movie Hannibal Lecter says it, and in the book it's Clarice. But there's a moment in Silence of the Lambs where they go out of their way to be like, I'm not saying this because they're a transsexual, because a transsexual wants to become the other, or something like that. And I'm just like, yeah, there's one line where it's like, no, we're not saying all trans people or that this person's even trans. It's just puts the lotion on the skin, or it gets the hose again. It if it was just one book, it's not a trend. If it's all the books,
It's a pattern.
Hannibal Lecter in the books killed men because he wanted to have sex with them and couldn't bring himself to do it because it was considered perverse. So he ate them instead, because that's less perverse than having sex. I'm just saying, I'm going to spoil all Thomas Harris books for you right now. They did it because they're queer.
It's boring. Just to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And not only is it problematic, but it's literally boring. Like,
Yes. Let's talk about my favorite thing in the world. Mashups, mashups, mashups. Let's all do a mashup. This is why I really want tags to be a thing. I want genres to go away and just have tags.
mhm.
Just have tags, because it's so much easier to find stories in places that let you do good tagging than it is this stupid archaic genre thing, which was important when we actually went to a bookstore and had to find something on a shelf.
We had to physically go to that corner of the bookstore.
And I still get doing it for libraries, right? If a physical library is going to have a physical copy of the book, they need to know what shelf in whatnot it needs to be in. I'm not opposed to it.
To have many books in there.
But I'm just saying, for the rest of us, let us tag the crap out of stuff. Because I don't know, I'm not saying that this was his original idea, because I'm sure it came from someone else. But the person that I think of when I think of this is Neil Gaiman, said that a story is what happens when two contradictory ideas meet each other and you go, huh, well, that's a funny thing. Like, that's what makes good stories. And one of the things that I love that indie publishing allows to have happen is this like crazy mashup stuff. The series that I'm currently working on, The World that I'm working on, which already has books out in it, it's darker. It's like Buffy the Vampire Slayer meets The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, but with a lot more dragons and fairies, because I like that, but with more of a True Blood kind of to it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you normally wouldn't be able to do that. You'd have to pick a lane. Like, well, this is a vampire story, so it has to have vampires. And then eventually, like, okay, fine, you can put a werewolf in there, but they have to hate each other because vampires and werewolves just don't get along. Like, okay, yes, racism has to be a thing in our fiction. Fine, whatever. Shut up. You know, like, let us just tell our stories. Mashups are the greatest things ever. And this is the power of being indie. Like, if you want me to get on my pulpit and preach the power of being indie published, mashups will never sell to the mainstream market. They're not going to go in to those traditional publishers because they're going to go, but which is it? That farmer in Idaho is going to be so confused. Is it a space opera or not? Well, first of all, that person doesn't exist. Two, if they did, they're not reading space opera. I'm just telling you. Because I know my first thing is, ooh, that spaceship on the cover looks interesting. Or, ooh, that's a nifty thing that I see. You know, making sure that you're living up to what you... This is the one thing in Save the Cat that needs to be like repeated over and over again. Always deliver on the premise of your promise. If you are promising somebody that you're going to have like these dark elder gods and these amazing oracle priestesses, that's the book I want. Now, that doesn't mean you can't do other things or have other things in there. But how many times have you been so frustrated? What was that movie? Battle for Los Angeles, I think, where like I came for their aliens are conquering the world movie, and it turned into this weird like we're having marital problems and I'm going to sacrifice myself to the alien movie. I'm just like that's not why I'm here. It's like The Happening by M. Night Shyamalan. You promised me a scary movie where some invisible force is killing people, not people that are upset because your wife had coffee with another guy. Dude, unless coffee means sex, get over it. Like, no, the big reveal in that movie, sorry to spoil it if you haven't seen it, is Zooey Deschanel had coffee with Mark Wahlberg's best friend, and he's butthurt about it. They've been fighting all movie like she did something terrible, like she killed somebody. She killed his dog or something. No, she had coffee. He saw them through the window of the... I came for a weird, mysterious thing is randomly killing people and we have to escape it movie. Not really, you're so petty that you're willing to kill everyone around you because your wife had coffee with another man movie. Live up to the premise of your promise. You know, and that's the great thing about genre mashup is once you start learning that language of figuring out what are people expecting to see, like if Doll's still here, when you're doing your cover, start thinking about what are the conventions of the covers that make your genre what it is so that people immediately cue in, oh, it's going to be that kind of story. Because that's what gets people excited. You know, I was hyped for the Maleficent movie when they said, we're doing a Maleficent movie. And then they said, it has Angelina Jolie in it. And I went, tell me more. And then I saw that cover and I went, I like me a Lord of the Rings movie. I don't know how you're going to turn Maleficent into a Lord of the Rings movie, but I'm going to be there for it. Because that's the language that they put into the poster, right? That's the beauty of mashup. Making Maleficent no longer the villain, for the way they recapture that story, True Love's kiss being motherly love. Sorry for spoilers if nobody's seen it, but if you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's on Disney Plus. Go. It's a great movie. But it lived up to its promise. And so people that went there thinking, oh, I'm getting a simple retelling of this Sleeping Beauty story. I'm like, A, did you see a trailer for this movie?
Did you see
because
that when you walked past when you were going to the movie theater?
Yeah. Like the thing I was most surprised about is there were no ends. Like I was expecting her to have an argument with somebody in Entish because it was getting so Lord of the Rings. Like there needed, what? There's not a floating eyeball that's threatening the world? Like those were the things that were kind of surprising for me, right? But you make those promises and you deliver on them. And so making a mix, that to me is how you do original fiction. Every story has already been told. It has. Because every time you think that it hasn't, somebody will pull out a book that's either 50 or 1,000 years old and go, here it is, or something written in a language that you don't know and hand it to you. But we make it our own by putting our own idiosyncrasies into it and just mixing it up. Yeah. Planet hopping is always fun. But yeah, if I will try to find, if you can find it anywhere, they were supposed to put it online. And I don't think they ever did. The Encyclopedia of Science Fiction, it's huge. Like it's a great book, but it was like $60 when I bought it like 10 years ago. So who knows now, but it's huge. It goes into a lot of detail, and it was an attempt to make a literary view of the genre. It's a really good resource to go into the details of the tropes and where tropes originally came from. Like they tried to do like an OED of science fiction and track down, well, who was the first person to do hyperspace in their story, and who was the first. It's a fascinating resource if you can get your hands on it, and you want to know like the full history of everything. And I love reading through it when I have a sci-fi idea because it sparks so many different things. Because I'm like, oh, I never even thought about doing that. That's old enough. That might be out of copyright by now. Woohoo! I have not. I've never been to Utah, and I don't know if I'm allowed in Utah. But okay, story time with Charlie real quick, because I was thinking maybe, well, we'll talk about when this thing ends, but we're coming up on the 3-hour streaming mark. So if nothing else, we're going to take a break to stretch if we're not wrapping up soon. I'm not allowed Mormons anymore. So I am a very spiritual person.
Right.
I know I joke around with my papas and everything, but I'm a very spiritual person. I have a very deep and abiding faith. One of the things I love doing is talking about religion.
Right.
You know what most people don't like talking about? Religion. You know who loves talking about religion? Mormons. And the best thing is, unlike a Jehovah's Witness, you can have a conversation with a Mormon missionary.
Mm-hmm.
Like a Jehovah's Witness comes to sell you something.
Mm-hmm.
Mormon missionaries come to have a conversation. I love that. And so I used to call the number every so often. And yes, I'm interested in the testimony of Jesus Christ, and have them send some Mormons out to the house. And we would have conversations for a while until they realized that the odds of me becoming a Mormon were slim to none. And then they would go away. Apparently, at some point in this process, I accidentally converted a couple missionaries by accident, not trying. I actually, as I've talked to Abigail about before, I'm a part of the least organized religion in the world. We don't believe in proselytization. So that's why we're amazed when we find out, oh, you're one too? Wow. How did you find us? Because we don't promote. So it was by accident. But so a couple of months later, and I know this because they came to the house one night and were like, we're being shipped out tomorrow to different places. What were those books that you were talking about again? And then I never saw them again. So a couple months later, as per my traditional, timeline, I called up the number again. I was like, hello, yes, I'm interested in another testimony of Jesus Christ. And the person on the phone, I heard them type for a second and then go, I'm sorry, Mr. Dorset, but we're not able to send anybody to your house. Bye. Have a nice day. Bye. Click.
Well, that doesn't mean that you're not allowed in Utah.
I don't know. Well, I don't know. I know that the local, I know the local Mormon church has warned people about us. Because apparently I'm infamous around them, because we went to go to the store and they were out in the parking lot and one of them came up to me and we started talking, and then another one came up to them and whispered something in their ear, and they got in a car and drove away very quickly. And one of our employees who was Mormon was told by the church that they had to either they had to choose whether they were going to work for us or stay a member of good standing in the local congregation. So I'm not allowed Mormons. I've spoiled that by accident, which is terrible because now I have no one to talk crazy religion talk with. So yeah, that's why I joke. Like, I don't know if I'm allowed in Utah. Like, I have this like morbid fear that I'm going to get there, get pulled over, and we're sorry, Mixed Dorset, but no, just turn around now, mosey on. It's not for you. Because given the weirdness of my life, it would not be surprising at all. It would not. Like, it would just be like, well, this makes sense. Like, I get it. Like, I don't know that I'll ever be allowed in Switzerland either, but that wasn't my fault. Oh, the Lucifer show. Yes. Oh, so excited. I love Lucifer. I know a lot of people are upset, especially Becca, because of the spoiler, the big spoiler in the trailer, which I'm assuming is going to be like spoiled right up front in the show too. Or why did they put it in the trailer?
There's been times where it's like they put something in the trailer and that doesn't happen until like near the end of the movie, and you're just like, I now know the whole movie because of this trailer. Because
there's a spoiler in the trailer that I'm not going to spoil in case people haven't seen it and they're excited for the show. Because I don't know if it's a spoiler or not. Like, it could be like, that's how the season opens. We learn this information.
Yeah.
And then it's how does everybody deal with it? I don't know. Maybe. But I'm so excited for that show. Like I make a joke, like the current joke in our house is if it doesn't have Satan in it, we're not excited about it right now. Because like between Lucifer and Lucifer Supernatural, we've been listening to a lot of Ghosts. There's the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina that I rewatch way more than I should. Like it's all Satan all the time in our house right now, apparently. Which is funny if you understood that I'm saying this with a crucifix over there. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Madonnas. It's a very Catholic house. But I'm so excited. So excited. Yeah, I'm so thrilled. I love that show. I like it a lot more once it went to Netflix.
I'm doing a Happy Dance.
Ooh.
Have you ever seen Leverage?
I want to say yes, but my brain on show titles lately, I had a whole conversation with somebody the other day, and then we realized halfway through we were talking about different shows because 2 of the characters happened to have the same name. And so I thought they were talking about one show. So I'm going to say no, because I think I'm thinking of a completely different show.
It's fantastic.
So just for safety's sake, I'm going to say no.
Recommend that too. Throw that in with Skyrim. Because I've seen it like 30 times all the way through all the seasons. So
you don't want to know how many times I've watched certain shows. Though I do wish that there was a counter, because I do think it would be kind of nifty. Like, how many times have I rewatched the show on Netflix?
Yes.
Personally, I would, especially for like the Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, because that show, I don't know what it is about it that makes me happy, but it makes me like unreasonably happy. I think it's I can't remember her name. She plays Madam Satan. She was the mistress on Doctor Who. I've loved her since I first saw Green Wing. If anybody's ever seen that show, it is an extremely inappropriate British comedy that she plays the human resources officer at the hospital in. That was the first time I ever saw her in anything. And I love her so much. And I think it's her, like nothing against the kids or any of the other characters in there, but I would love to know what my view count is on that, because I'm sure it's something insane. Oh, the Manticore. Yeah. Yeah. They actually have a lot of the old weird movies. Like they have the whole multi-headed shark oeuvre on there, and I didn't realize how many heads the shark eventually gets. I think it gets up to 5 or 6. Is they have 3-headed shark attack, 5-headed shark attack, and I think they have like a 6-headed shark attack or something. I knew there were a lot of Sharknado movies. I did not know there were a lot of multi-headed shark movies. But if you're a fan of bad B movies, it's not up there yet, but you have to watch, what is it, Giant Shark versus Megagator, especially if you're an oldie like me, because they cast Debbie Gibson and Tiffany in this movie to play rival scientists for some reason. And then they have a Jello fight in the middle of the movie, which is the funniest thing. If you lived through the weird sniping between them in the 80s, it is the funniest thing ever committed. You got 2 grown women to do this. Like, I hope I never need money that much.
Jello fight.
Just randomly out of nowhere. Like, the world's going to die if we don't stop the Megagator. You bitch. It's just out of nowhere. It happens. Because somebody needed that. Like, you can tell that scene was in somebody's fan fiction that they wrote when they were in 5th grade back in the day. And they were like, I'm going to slip this in. It's going to get cut out of the script, but if it gets made, all my dreams come true.
Or at the very least, it might get cut, but maybe the actresses will be able to do it, and I'll just get cut from the final,
Because it is so oddly random, just out of nowhere. And the fact that they've got these 2 pop star, child pop stars from the 80s to play a shark specialist and an alligator specialist. that then have a random. It's even better because it's like a Jello fight at a wedding in the bayou that they both accidentally got invited to. Like, it is the most contrived. Like, how do we get these two characters in the same place? Like, if you think you've written a contrived scene, watch this movie. You will feel so much better about your writing. Like, it is the most contrived. How do we get these people together that I've ever seen in my life? Oh my goodness. But yeah, they have a lot of the weird Sci-Fi Channel stuff up there, which makes me happy. I'm just living for the day. Disney, I know you're not listening. I need Space Above and Beyond on Disney Plus or on Hulu. You own both of them, but you own Fox now, which means you own Space Above and Beyond. This is the best show, sci-fi series that has ever been on television. It got one season, and it's never been released in any other format. Please, you own it. If nothing else, just put the Christmas special up because it was so good. It was so good. But Disney, you own it. Make it happen. Everybody's looking for content right now. It's an entire series just sitting there that's new to everybody because I saw Abigail's eyes like, there's a what?
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
It's a military sci-fi show that takes place. The Earth is attacked, and we are on the wrong foot. Like, we don't have the technology to fight back, but we captured a couple of the enemy spacecraft and are learning how to refit them. And so we're just mounting a defense, and it's the dry run for Firefly in a lot of ways. There's a clone character in there that has a lot of similarities to characters that would later appear in. He reminds me a lot of both Jane from Firefly and I know that name's wrong. My brain is fritzing out on me. I want to say Abel, but that's not his name. From okay, all the words are gone now because it's not Dark Matter. That's not the show. The one that just moved over to Amazon Prime that's based on Leviathan Wakes. Brain, why are you doing this to me? Sorry, I'm looking it up right now because this is The Expanse.
I've got something in my eye. I'm not crying, don't worry.
It was such a good show, and now that Disney owns it, it's like that, and I need the really creepy animated show that George Lucas made that never got released. I need that too.
There's a lot about George Lucas I realized I didn't know. I'm reading a biography about Stan Lee.
Nice.
And I never knew that George Lucas approached Stan Lee and Marvel.
Yep.
To basically do a comic book version of Star Wars first, and Stan Lee turned him down. And then a while later, when they were making the movie, they were like, "Hey, you sure you don't want to do this?" And like Stan realized that it wasn't just an average sci-fi, because I kid you not, in the book it says, because at the time, sci-fi didn't sell. Or like, I don't even know if they said at the time. They're like, because Stan knew sci-fi didn't sell. And then I was like,
yeah, sci-fi was not selling well when Star Wars happened.
And then
ironically,
Stan realized that it was not just sci-fi, it was a sci-fi soap opera, space opera. And said, people seem to want that. And so they had already seen some success or some hints of success of what would come with the movies. And so they made the comic books.
And if you actually want to read it, it is on Marvel Unlimited, their all-you-can-eat comics platform. And it's great because they used the concept art that was approved prior to filming. So Chewie actually looks like Zeb from the Rebels cartoon, because that was the original concept art for Chewie. He's not the hairy Wookiee character that you know. Jabba is a human in the comic because he was originally intended to be a human, and he is a human in the comic. It is interesting because it was based on a lot of the earlier concept art for the movie, because the movie had not been completely cast yet, and they hadn't finalized a lot of the well, if you know anything about the making of the first Star Wars movie, a lot of costumes were not set until the day they went in to shoot them. So yeah, it's an interesting read. And while talking about Star Wars, if you haven't read it, the I think fourth draft of the script for the original Star Wars that George came up with has been turned into a Marvel comic as well. It is called The Star Wars, and it tells the story of Anakin Starkiller. So when you hear all the tales of the old stuff that he had been working on, it is a very interesting read. It is a very interesting read. It's also on their Unlimited app, and I know that it was made to basically get back at everybody who says that he didn't have an idea for the prequels, because it's essentially the prequels with A New Hope right in the middle of it as a like sliver of the story. It's, if you can't tell, we Star Wars fans in this house. One of these days I'm gonna have to get out my giant Yoda and have it just sitting in the background of one of the streams. That's awesome. Thank you, Jules. It is so helpful. It will tell you the pedigree of all of your ideas. And what's really cool about it is you get to see, like, it's because it's not just like a Wikipedia article where it's like hyperspace is a way that they move faster in science fiction. It goes through and like this author used it this way and this author used it this way. And you get to see all this variety through a lot of it's really fascinating. And I found a lot of writers that I became a huge fan of later, because I was like, ooh, that sounds really interesting. I need to find that book. So if you need a rat hole to completely eat your time up, that works. Yeah. That was, oh yeah, that was a thing. And I have to say, I mean, I love the How to Train Your Dragon movie. I love the cartoon. If I'm allowed to say that, the Race for the Edge cartoon. If you haven't seen it, if you like the How to Train Your Dragon,
yes, and I've seen the cartoon as well. I want to read books because I know they're quite different.
At least the first couple, you can get an audiobook of them read by David Tennant. Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, we use them. Sorry. Yeah, we use them as bedtime stories sometimes when we're having trouble falling asleep. Yeah, you can get they're on Audible. David Tennant, I know he reads, I think, the first 2 or 3. He may have done the whole series. He had intentions to do the whole series, and the books are different from the movies. But yeah, David Tennant reads.
I also want to get Audible just to listen to some Richard Armitage stuff.
I'm addicted to Audible, and I will tell you right now, my top pick, if you're doing an Audible book and you just want to kill time and you like superheroes, Andrea Vernon and the Corporation for Extra Human Protection is the best audiobook I have listened to. If you just need to laugh, it is funny. My favorite superhero in the world now comes from this book. He's Professor Well Actually. His superpower is correcting people. You have to say something wrong in his presence for his superpower to work. And well, actually, and even if he doesn't know, he will know. So, like, you could just know anything you need to know by getting him to, well, actually, I love him so much. The book is hilarious, and I love the reader. Like, I'm so into that series. I love audiobooks. I've been thinking about doing audiobook reviews because I listen to a lot of audiobooks. And everybody talks about like the actual books, and I'm like, oh, but some of these audiobooks are better than the actual books.
Narrators are important.
And that one, oh my goodness. I love the reader. I love the reader so much. She cracks me up. Yes, you're talking about the comedy with David Duchovny, right? Right? Because if you're not, I don't know what you're talking about. But Uh, uh, yeah, yeah. That there's spoilers, man. Just behave, y'all. See, I can't think of Evolution without thinking of the song David Duchovny by Bree Sharp. If you are not familiar with this song, enjoy. My favorite line in the song is when she screams in the middle of it, "I'm gonna kill Scully." Great song. Wonderful song. Oh, wait. On DVD? Jules.
I think you may have just changed Charlie's life.
You may have just... I may sneak that. How can I sneak that home without my...
Why?
I'm gonna have to...
Your husband?
He will freak out if I can get that into the house.
Like a happy surprise?
Yeah. Like, how can I sneak that into the house without him? I might have to create a secret Amazon account to buy that. Because we share an Amazon account. I'm going to have to... Thank you so much. You have no idea. That... Because I've been searching and searching for years.
Don't look at Amazon unless you're going to delete your Amazon search history.
Yeah. Thank you. I was just about to open it. Yeah. I'm going to have to figure that out because if I can sneak that into the house, that would be like a great surprise. I'm going to have to look into that. That's amazing. Because I love a lot of old shows. And that one was so good. I love that movie. I know so many people that think they don't like that movie, and then you start talking about what happened in the movie, and they're like, that movie's so funny. I'm like, yeah, that's Evolution. Like, I don't know why people... It's a weird, like... what do they call it? Mandela effect thing, where people have a memory of not liking that movie, and then you start making references to things that happen, and then they're like, that movie's so funny. I'm like, yeah, that's Evolution. That's it's so funny. It is so funny. It just went up on a streaming service too. I remember seeing it and getting all excited to get to watch it again. Well, you know, Chris these days, he's just a little lazy.
He's busy.
I don't know what's going on here. We're under a flood watch for the next 2 days because I live in a swamp, y'all. And like right now, it is so dark and gloomy. Like if I look out the window, it's dark and gloomy. The lights have come on in the house. I can see the blue sky, like crystal clear blue sky. I think there's like literally a cloud over my house right now, making it dark and gloomy because my yard is dark and gloomy. The neighbor's yard, like it's only missing the singing flowers and the unicorns. Like it's all bright and sunny over there. But where we live, one of these days I'm going to get it on film and include it in a video. It will rain on my side of the street and not on the other side of the street. Like there would literally be a wet, dry line right down the middle of the road, which is bizarre, and it happens way too often. Alrighty, did we, before I go on to the last little bit here, did we answer everybody's questions? We talked about everything in the world because it's one of my streams, and that's what we do. So if anybody has any last minute questions that you want to make sure and get asked and answered, bring them up so that we can do that. I am really considering what I'm going to be doing next month because I really like doing these chats. I don't know what day they're going to end up on. Moving forward, I like doing the Wednesday write-ins. I really like doing the Wednesday write-ins. So that's set. And the Fan Fiction Fridays, I'm so excited about. You have no idea. So that's definitely set. I want there to be just a chatty stream from sometime during the week, though it's not all about, hey, let's get together and do a thing. Just like, I like this. I like this a lot. So you don't have to like put it in chat now, but if anybody doesn't know, I am CE Dorset on every social media platform. In fact, I cheated apparently because I don't have the subscriber numbers to have a personalized domain. But back when they first started offering those on YouTube, I grabbed it just to have it. So if you go to youtube.com/CE Dorset, it redirects to my channel. It redirects to my dead name, but it redirects to my channel. So hopefully, if I ever do get enough subscribers to have the actual official thingy, they'll fix that. But did I misspell my own name? I did. I misspelled my own name. Holy crap.
What?
I misspelled my own name when I put it in the chat.
Dorset.
Yeah. Let's try that. I am CE Dorset on everything. StreamYard just asked if I wanted to block myself from chatting. So maybe I shouldn't be doing that right now. Anyway, I am CE Dorset on everything. So if you're interested in more of this kind of just like chit-chatty thing, I really like doing it. And I'm just trying to figure out when's a good time for people. And my schedule is fairly open. The only days that are kind of verboten for me is Monday, Sunday and Monday, because those are my husband's days off. And with our busy schedules, we rarely get to spend time together. So Sundays and Mondays are kind of, off the table for me. But I really want to do more of these. And we need to figure out when is a good time. So just whenever you get a time, get an idea, let me know, because it means so much to me that you all show up for this and are actually here, because like I really mean this. When I started doing YouTube this month, really, I didn't think anybody would watch my videos, to be honest. I didn't think anybody would care. And I'm sitting here today as I'm talking to you with 85 subscribers.
Yeah.
And to be honest, I didn't think I would have one. Like maybe one, like my husband out of pity would subscribe or something. But you know what I'm saying? Like I never expected to have anybody here.
I feel the same way.
So it really means a lot. And I want this to be more of a community thing. So do let me know when, because I really like the idea of doing them on, I'm thinking Saturdays, because I think a lot of people do weekend, stuff, like as in taking weekends off. And so we're not interrupting somebody needing to get work done.
Yeah.
Kind of a thing. I don't know. So let me know when you want to do these. I just want to say that because I have a lot of stuff scheduled in my upcoming, because I do know the Wednesday and Thursdays. And so I'm going to put a bunch of those up just so that they're in there. And I'll be updating the thumbnails and stuff as I figure out who's going to be on them with me, and the descriptions over time. But that way they're in there so people know, like, this is my regular, like it's very clear. Wednesdays and Fridays I do this. But and also let me know what all you all want, because Tuesday videos, I want to be like just me talking about what's going on with my publishing stuff, because that's where I wanted to end this with. I'm doing something very stupid next month, in that I'm taking all of my work off of KU. I'm going to be giving all of my books away for anybody who wants to read them. And so I'm doing what used to be called a pay for convenience model back in the day. They'll be up on the website for anybody who wants to read them. But if you want them on a Kindle or something like that, then, you got to buy the Kindle format or the paperback and whatnot. But, I am much more interested right now in growing an audience and getting my stories out there than I am in figuring out how I can squeeze every bit of money out of the work. And I also, it's not completely out of the kindness of my heart. A lot of these works were done before I realized I was trans. And so some of them are going to be rewritten before I start pushing them for sale again, because I see things in them that other people don't see that I find extremely problematic. But I want to be giving back to the community. So I'll be talking about my experiences with that on the Tuesday. I want the Wednesday video not to be like the Thursday video, not to be like an I'm so great, I'm so smart, I know everything kind of thing, but here's something I've learned from experience kind of video. So anything that y'all want from me or are curious about, also let me know. I have DMs turned on both of my social media platforms, which was really fun when I started doing the Black Lives Matter stuff on Twitter, which is why I stopped being on Twitter for a while.
Twitter, because I get stressed out every time I go on there, so I just don't.
Yeah, that's me in Facebook. Like, if you want to see me go into a complete death spiral, send me to Facebook. I will get into an argument with somebody in like 10 seconds, and it's not good. But just let me know what all you want, because I feel like I've taken so much from this community. I want to give back. And so let me know what y'all want, because I have the luxury of having been an old person in this industry. Like I started doing web design in the late 90s and have done a lot of work in web design and graphic design and advertising. And this, I did rotoscoping for a while and tried to do 3D, but I suck at it. That's why I make bad jokes with Laura, because she does that, which I cannot. But I've had many lives, and so anything I can do to share from those experiences, I want to do that. So thank you all so much for being here.
Yes.
Yeah, but definitely, don't be afraid to reach out to me. I talked to a couple of people last night that were extremely timid when I gave out my thing, and they're like, I hope I'm not bothering you. I'm like, on a public platform said, contact me. Like, if I don't have time, your message will come in a day or two. Like, don't worry about it. I don't have a compulsion to answer all of my messages, as anybody who's ever messaged me knows. I get to it when I have time, so don't worry about it. But
I think that's pretty reasonable for everyone.
Yeah. Well, I just got so many messages last night from people like, I know you said to contact you, but I hope I'm not bothering you. And like, I felt like 5 or 6 threads started that way. And I'm just like, if somebody says contact them and you do, you not bothering them.
I messaged you like, by the way, I'm joining you on the Fan Fiction Friday. Hope you don't mind, but I'm going to be there.
Yeah. And that's the other thing. That's the other reason why I want to put my schedule up there, because anybody, if you want to get on any of the things, you see what my schedule is, let me know. I like doing these with other people. I will say tomorrow is going to be a forced march. So I don't know how much of this is going to be happening.
Wow, we did pretty good.
We did pretty good today. I have not submitted the ones that I finished yet, because I'm holding out hope that I'm going to crank through the other ones really quickly, and then I'll have time to actually do some art. But I'm probably not going to. I'm not holding out hope too much. I will still submit without. I need that diamond badge. I need it. I need it so much. So thank you. It means a lot. You all, like, you really, like, you all are amazing. And I'm very excited. Tessa will be on the stream tomorrow. So that's awesome. Yes, I know you want to go outside. My dog is telling me it's time, but she's been telling me it's time all day. So just slow your roll. Alrighty. So do you have anything that, it is a lot of fun. Do you have anything that you need to promote?
I mean, I might be on with you tomorrow. I might not be. We'll see how I feel. My next live stream is not. After camp's over, I'm gonna sleep for a few days. My next one is the 6th. So a week from today, it's gonna be with Mr. P. official Mr. P
Awesome.
channel. And then after that is your fanfic. So that's all I have planned. So if
As
anyone
far as,
wants to do anything,
and for anybody who's left, anybody who's concerned about fanfic, because I've had a lot of people that seem to be afraid that they're going to pick the wrong fandom. There is no such thing as the wrong fandom. We're not setting rules. Whatever you love, like seriously, if you want to write Alice in Wonderland, like it doesn't matter if it's the Iliad is Homer. I'm sorry, not the Iliad. The Aeneid is Homer fan fiction. Fan fiction goes all the way back, y'all. Like whatever it is you love, that's all we're doing. Because the whole point is to write a story that you don't have to worry about if you get your editing right. You don't have to worry about if you're going to share it with anybody or not. You're just writing for the pure joy of writing, like we did when we were kids. Because I missed that. Alrighty.
all right.
Alrighty. Thank you again so much for being here. And until next time, as we always say at the end of all of the stuff that I do, remember, things have not changed. There is a lot of work to do. Look at what's going on in Portland and in other cities. It just started happening in New York City. Stand up for your liberties. Stand up for freedom. Black Lives Matter. Black trans lives matter. Breonna Taylor's killers are still doing quite well, which is just wrong, as well as a lot of other people looking to see what you can do to be a part of the solution in your community, but keep yourself safe. I wrote a very angry letter to my congressman recently because he wrote me a junk email claiming that Black Lives Matter is attempting to destroy the American family. And I had feelings. If nothing else, speak out, because they do keep track of how many of the people in their district say things. We can get better. Until next time. Hope you get all the words, and don't forget to have the fun. Alrighty, bye.